Here we go. Boom. That's right. It's tea time. We have arrived. The time change is why we're late, by the way. Not because we actually are late. Time has shifted. And therefore, we aren't here. But we do have we have Mela, we have Sneb, and we've got a lot of exciting news. Strike commissions. Ooh. Updates. New posts there. We know various things. And actually, look, I'm going to leak this. I'm going to leak this before we get to it for the strike missions. Okay, let's leak this real quick.
Ooh.
Okay?
Leaks.
Cameron has a Twitter account. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, that's true. Yeah, I'm just going to little tease, little tease there if you guys catch my drift. Okay, real quick before we get to that. And in fact, we might go into that first, actually, because that will be a kind of a short topic. Then we can talk about the elite specializations and a broad overview of all of the elite specializations that we've seen, because they're all unveiled now as well. So welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to Sneb. Sneb he's really into the mech, right? He's role playing as his Jade Golem. He is his Jade Golem. And, you know, Mela, you know, he's just pumping, right? You know, pumping on every build. 51k DPS on Specter. Very, very balanced, okay? Don't even hit the boss. You don't even attack the boss, guys. Right? All you do is bury your allies. 51k DPS. Feels good. I love to see it. But let's leap into this, because this is probably a very hot topic, I think. You know, I don't know about you guys, but this has been a really big thing being discussed on my stream and in YouTube as well. People are very, very divided, I would say, on strike missions. And strike missions, let's be honest, they're replacing raids. That's what's happening here, right? You know, like, people like, it's weird because I get a few comments all the time like, oh, I wish they would say they're replacing raids. Guys, they're replacing raids. It's very obvious that's what's going on. And this is 10-player content with challenge modes that's designed to be difficult. These are the new raids. This is what raids are. And there's a lot of divided opinions, because there isn't that much information out. There was an article out there that kind of gave a bit of a broad overview of some of the features of strike missions, like unifying rewards, having these challenge modes being reused from stories so they can be made much quicker, all that sort of thing. But I think people are skeptical, right? And I don't know, what do you think? Sneb, do you think people are right to be skeptical about strike missions? Or do you think they should just kind of embrace them and leap in?
Well, I mean, let's look at the report card here. Been over 800 days since the last raid.
Yes.
It's been over a year since the last fractal. I forget when Dungeons came out. They haven't touched Dungeons since release, right? So if we look at all of the quote unquote endgame content, I feel like there's a bit of distrust in the community now, because we just have so little information. I guess the most recent thing is Dragon Response missions, but I like to like block those from my memory.
Same.
So if we look at strike, honestly, when strike missions came out, they're what got me into raids. I actually like strike missions a lot. However, as somebody who's now more experienced in the game, end game content, strike missions are so easy, it's painful. That, and they're a bit of a buggy mess. So when people go, oh, I don't know about these strike missions thing, they're only going to look at what they have before them, the evidence. The evidence is current strike missions are very easy for most like end game players. And then they're going to think, okay, well, there's bugs. They never fixed them. The currency system is scuffed. They did say they're going to fix that, though, which I think is good. And because they're nowhere close to the difficulty of a raid, and because the format is different, people are massively skeptical. I think they have every right to be. I know for myself, I look at it and I go, they say that they're going to be as challenging as a raid boss. Do I believe them? I don't have any evidence that it's going to be that way yet. And I think a lot of raid bosses, well, not a lot, many of the raid bosses actually aren't that difficult once you've learned the mechanics and have like a proper squad and everything too. You can mitigate the mechanics, many of the mechanics, quite easily with standard ground or Aegis or whatever. Or you just out barrier, out heal it so that it doesn't do anything. So when they say that strike missions are going to be akin to raid bosses, I go, okay, but we have quite a bit of power creep here now. Is that actually going to make it easier? Like, look at Bladesworn, look at Specter, right? We're doing more and more and more damage. If it's the same as it is right now, won't that just actually be overall easier? So, and how difficult are the CMs going to be? the last time they did CMs, it was Dragon Response missions. I went to a Dragon Response mission with 4 friends, and we just put a standard fractal comp, and we beat all of the CMs blind on our first try. So if that's the definition of challenge, we have a problem. That's where I'm at. Is I don't know for certain. I believe in ArenaNet, but I'm not fully trusting. I'm in the skeptic zone as well.
Really? So
yeah.
Allow me to perhaps alleviate your suspicion here, because Cameron, I'm sure a lot of people know Cameron here is a big developer. He makes the hard content. He's behind stuff like 100 CM Sunquar Peak Challenge mode, and also a lot of kind of Fractal and some of the raid designs too, I believe, there as well. He has a Twitter account. And on that Twitter account, he was actually kind of replying a little bit and interacting with some players, kind of communicating a bit, a little bit of social media action going on there. And listen, I believe the word brutal was used, actually, Sneb. And of course, we don't have what that means in context, because, brutal for, say the ArenaNet QA team might not be brutal for us. But, I think Cameron is someone who likes to watch suffering, right? He likes that stuff. He likes to watch people, get destroyed, get farmed over and over again by bosses. And yeah, I believe, I think the Twitter post is being linked here, I believe, actually. Is it being linked right now? Is this a status here? Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. So I'll actually just show it on stream too while we're here. I have to be a little vague here, but the team is aiming to provide a clear difficulty ramp for the Strike CMs, leading it to some intense challenges. Some mechanics are brutal. That was the exact quote there from Cameron Rich there, the kind of encounter designer, big encounter design gamer there. So I don't know. I mean, I know that, again, that's talk, and talk is cheap, but I know, I respect Cameron. He did an excellent interview with Deeg, actually kind of talking about aspirational content and challenge.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, I don't know.
You don't know who that is? Wow. Like this man says he plays PvE.
I couldn't place him, but now I know who it is.
Yeah. Oh, my God. But anyway, it does seem that they are looking to make these things legitimately challenging. I wish he'd just said, it's as hard as Doom CM. Okay, like just give us that metric, like give us a point of comparison, because that's what we're really lacking. Right? We don't have that point of comparison right now, which is, you're quite right, which is why people are a little bit suspicious. But okay, that to me does seem a little bit encouraging, right? I think it's very clear that the developers are moving towards this, with a certain level of intention to make it challenging. And look, I know this is a bit of a meme here, but they did specifically bring up the fact that they're designing the Strike Mission challenge modes the same way they designed Fractal and Raid challenge modes. In other words, top down, right? So they start with the CM and then strip it, which is obviously the correct way to do it. But in my opinion, kind of bringing those two things up in the same sentence, in the same paragraph, right? That implies that you are almost going to see a kind of fairly similar, a similar level of difficulty, I imagine. Maybe not quite as hard as raid CMs, because in my opinion, let's suppose that we take, the bone.
Well, which raid CMs are hard?
Well, honestly, for most people, they're really hard, right? Okay, I mean,
okay, but think okay, which ones are actually significantly different than the main fight?
I would say Samrog CM and Demos CM, Doom CM, Kadim CM in particular. Those are pretty big steps up from the normal, I'd say. The other ones are not too bad. Yeah, I like most services CM. It's just not that hard, right? I think it's not.
What if the Strike CMs are just like Cairn CM, right? Whereas hardly any real, like you just press a button a bunch of times, or like Mo's just blues. That's it.
I'm gonna simp for MOCM. I think MOCM is great. I think it's one of the best CMs actually. It's awesome.
I think it's super fun. I just think there's not a lot to it, right? Like it's just blue squares. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right? The problem with MOCM is that should have been the normal mode.
True.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I'm trying to get at here is that there are some CMs that are like legit CMs, and then there are some CMs where it's like, why didn't they just make that the normal mode? Because it's so marginally different that it like doesn't matter. Well, and that's why the weekly CM thing, everybody just does the same 5 or 6 CMs because they're barely different than normal mode. So the challenge to me really is pretty insignificant.
Okay.
Casey, Mo, Cairn, Sabir.
Well, KC,
Sabir,
we should not include KC in the conversation. It's like the first one they did as a meme, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely hear what you're saying here, but I think with raids, ArenaNet were trying. Why wasn't it the CM? Why was it not the normal mode, not the CM? I think the answer to that question is because they were trying to make it so that the normal mode was a little bit accessible. So they had to make the normal mode like super, super easy, and they couldn't make such a crazy step up to the CM, right? If that makes sense, right? Because you know, in the same with strikes in a way, right? Like you couldn't have like a really hard CM because it would be such a massive step up. But I think with the new strike missions, because they are story bound, I think they're actually a little bit less bound by this, because one thing that you know you would see ArenaNet heavily restricted by is that they want to try and make it so that players can actually experience the content. I would say that Wing 7 actually fell into this trap the most by making the fights really, really undertuned, like quite mechanically interesting, but very undertuned. But because they were like, okay, guys, we're on Wing 7 right now. No one's playing raids. It's a dead game mode. People are making GitHub websites that like count down since the last raid wing. They're making fun of us. We need to make it so this raid is a success and loads of people play it. So they made it really easy, right? Like really low numbers on all the HP, like all the enrages were really easy. Like the mechanics weren't very punishing, all this kind of stuff. But they won't actually be bound here because it's going to be in the story. So everyone's going to experience that strike mission one way or another, right? There's if you play through the entire story of Ender Dragons, you will experience every strike mission, or rather every strike boss. So that, you know, the ArenaNet box has been ticked, right? They've made this piece of content, this boss, and everyone who plays the story will get value out of it and experience it. No longer do you have this divide between the regular game and raids, because the raids and regular game have blended together, right? And I think that actually gives ArenaNet a lot more flexibility with pushing difficulty, because it now doesn't matter if people can't do the hard mode, because, you know, they get to experience the content. They see the story, they see the lore, they see the character artwork, right? The dialogue, right? All that kind of stuff. They will experience that. And then they have the option to pursue the same content for an additional challenge. Whereas before on raids, if you aren't good enough to complete the normal mode, then you can't experience that content, right? You know, if you can't get good enough to beat Veil Guardian will punch you to death and laugh at you forever, right? Okay, and you'll never get to Gorseville unless you buy, right? Unless you're forced to buy raids. You know, just like YummySaw said, right? You know, you will never get a group on NA. You must buy raids. Okay, that's a quote, direct quote from Yummy Sauce. You will never get a group. He was talking about Doom CM actually that one time. But now you won't need to buy a group for Doom CM. Well, you probably still will, but you'll be able to at least see the story and experience it, which means that ArenaNet get value out of it. The players get value out of it and probably won't feel so excluded, so gatekept, because they get that easy mode, they get that story mode experience. And that means that I think that the encounter design team have a bit more freedom to go pretty hard on making these mechanics and DPS checks a little bit more challenging on the hard mode in particular, simply because it doesn't matter if people can't do them.
Yeah, I actually think that the format of strikes is a positive thing as well. Well, it comes with pros and cons. The con is that a little less role play, maybe, right? Because you just walk into an arena and then you fight the boss. But and for speed runners, there's no like trash mobs, and that kind of presents some fun ways to optimize runs. So I want to acknowledge that's a big loss for many. However, the ability to just jump into the fight and instantly get into the action is a big deal, because now in video games, all like the general population of people that play MMOs now are probably in their 20s, 30s plus. And so some people just don't have a lot of time. They got kiddos or they got a job or whatever, and they want to be able to just hop into the action quick. And so I actually think that the way strike missions are set up, where you're able to just get a group and then hop in, is a positive thing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this is the big strength of a lot of Guild Wars 2 content, right? Is how little downtime there is. PvP, 0 downtime. World of Sword, 0 downtime. Right? Strikes, 0 downtime. Raids, honestly, very low downtime, right? You just go in, boom, go, boss, triple boss, right? And open world, there's always something going on. There's like some kind of like giant meta thing happening, right? That's one of the strengths of the game, and strikes definitely play into that for sure. there as well. Yeah, it does suck that we're losing the long form style, but it's not impossible because Forging Steel is technically a strike, right? So could they actually add a strike mission that was more like, almost like a Guild Wars 1 mission? Because I mean, I think that's what Forging Steel kind of reminds me of, right? Is that the old school Guild Wars 1 stuff, right? Where you have this kind of like linear path through this dungeon, like this kind of story dungeon thing going on there. And I think it's entirely possible they could actually add something like that. And yeah, I know it's technically called Visions of the Past, but listen, guys, okay? They only ever did one of those, okay? So it's a strike mission. And it's on the strike chest, in the strike reward chest, guys. It's in there. I'm just saying that there is potential for expansion on the strike mission system, expanding out to a more, kind of generalized type of content there as well, to actually kind of reincorporate these kind of trash mob and movement elements into the content instead of just a single boss. I think a lot of them are going to be single bosses. In fact, I think probably all of them will be single bosses for the start, but I think they could definitely evolve that, right, at some point and move it over to something else. And hey, look, team, I'm just saying, like, do you know why everyone should be really hyped for strikes? Because one of the only ways that you'll ever see a raid ever again in Guild Wars 2, by the way, okay, is if they actually do really well and people enjoy the challenging content. Then you actually might see like one raid every 3 years, okay? Like, so yeah, like hold on to that one.
Copy.
I think, okay, so people are talking about like Cold War and stuff. I have a hot take. I actually think that now I'm forgetting the name of it. The Visions of the Past one. What is that called again?
Forging Steel.
Forging Steel. There you go. Yeah. Forging Steel and Cold War are actually really good, but they both wait. They're good, and except they have two fundamental flaws. You can't speed them up, and actually that's just the main one. You can't speed them up. So the reason that people don't like them is because your skill doesn't translate to anything, right? You can't beat the boss faster. So Cold War could actually be a lot better if the trash mobs at the beginning, instead of a timer, there just was a certain number and you could whip through them. I think. Then for Forging Steel, if that tank wasn't like hard capped by by super speed or whatever, and there were actually good ways to speed up to get to the actual boss fight, I think people would like them because it'd be more like dungeons.
I think if you want to do that, you have to break away from the NPC. There can't be characters that you have to escort. I agree with you actually that having like a longer form instance can be pretty cool. But the problem is that this is kind of the problem with Dragon response missions too, right? One of the reasons why I think they feel a bit frustrating, particularly if you're trying to try out them, is that you're bound by how fast you can make the AI move, essentially. Because, fun fact actually, with the Dragon response missions, there was a tournament run by Planix and Lynn about, daily Dragon responder. And it turns out that they were actually kind of fun to speedrun outside of the NPCs being a bit annoying sometimes. Like, a lot of the teams enjoyed it at the end of the day, and they were really got into the Dragon response missions after the tournament was done, even though they thought they wouldn't necessarily have to. And it's because there is that speedrunning component to it, but it is just so hindered by having to deal with these characters that you need to escort everywhere and wait for them to catch up with you. So, you know what's funny, though, is if you actually did do this, you'd essentially have brought back dungeons. That would just be dungeons.
Yeah.
That's literally dungeons at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the other problem, I think, with strike missions is the stupid special action key. It just invalidates so much of, building parties and stuff. I mean, what's the record for Bone Skinner was what, like 15 seconds or something, right? Like, it's stupid that you can do that with the special action key. It makes creating a party and everything. It's just silly. It just is. It's too powerful. Now, the reason I think they have it in play is because it actually makes everything much better for just casual players, because you can actually kill the boss, right?
But it doesn't make anything better. I disagree with that. Like, the whole mechanic is such a meme. They should just remove it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they remove it. But what I'm saying is that it actually makes somebody who's going to do 2k DPS do like 5k DPS, right? Like, it gives like a little bit of a boost. I know this because when I would run Drakkar and I was trying to like speed run it, I would spam use your special action key off cooldown, use the laser beam, fire your lasers, and you wouldn't believe how much faster Drakkar gets done if everyone just presses the laser beam. Because these are people that are doing almost nothing, right? They're doing like 2 to 3k. They fire their laser beam in unison, and the boss takes like a ton of damage. It's beautiful. But I think it's like a terrible mechanic for instance content, because then you have to focus a lot of your strategy. If you're trying to be optimized and efficient, you focus all your strategies around it. So, and that's the same problem with Cold War. Cold War isn't fun because not only do you have to sit there for 7 minutes and can't speed it up, but everything, you just spam your artillery gun thing and your special action key laser beams and everything blows up. So there's no real threat. You just spam a bunch of support players, you stand on an icon and away you go, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit of an aside topic there, but I think the entire set of Icebrood Saga Masteries is a absolute catastrophe for players getting better at the game. Because instead of learning how to break bars and how to do damage, they just learn to press the action key, right? Which does it all for them, which is the opposite of what you want to do, right? You want people to understand why they're pressing the action key, but they don't. They just say, you know what? I press the action key, I do 1,000,000 damage. And funnily enough, I actually don't even blame the player there, right? It's a perfectly logical conclusion to come to, is that, oh, the blue bar's up, I need to press my action key now. Like for the way station, for example, oh, to break the blue bar, you need the way station. Look, the way station icon is blue, the bar is blue. That makes sense, right? I don't blame the players at all. I think this is a genuinely horrible mechanic ArenaNet added to the game. I don't think it's a mastery, so they probably won't remove it, but if there was one mastery to remove, I would remove all of the Icebrood Saga ones. Like, no joke. I would just get rid of all of them. They are...
All of them? Even the ones that, like, open the chest and stuff? I thought those were just, like, role-play-ish.
Yeah, like, but, like, all the ones that do something. Like, all the ones that do something are just, like, yeah. Like, the laser beam one has to go. I think dude, do you know how overpowered the orb buffs are that you get? It just gives you 20% damage reduction when you have the orb buff. That's insane. It's actually insane how overpowered.
The other issue is that it creates another reason to not let people play with you, right? Oh, you don't have the mastery? Yeah, you're gonna take 20% more damage. You can't play with us. You don't have the laser beam. If you can't Kamehameha this boss down, then we're not gonna let you in.
Yeah, the problem I have with this, actually, and well, this is more of a general design point. Like, when you add power creep to the game, you have to design around said power creep. So every single open world boss has to be designed knowing that way station exists now. Like, if they ever make strike missions again, and they let you use Icebrood Saga Masteries, then every single strike mission has to be designed around the fact that you have access to these abilities. And it's the same thing with fractal potions, right? Like, why does 100 CM literally flat one-shot you if you don't have the potions? Well, because they have to bounce around the fractal potions. You know what's really funny, actually? This is actually not a problem unique to Guild Wars 2, because this was happening in retail WoW, but actually at the very beginning of World of Warcraft. Because in World of Warcraft, you had a lot of consumables, like an insane amount of consumables. You could have like 20 potions on you at the same time, and you could have like every buff in the game. You could have world buffs that made you do like double damage from, like, you know, turning in quests and stuff like this. And the developers for WoW, they had this like really big conundrum. It was like, okay, we need to either prevent you from using these buffs, or we need to basically balance everything around it. And there was a lot of complaints saying that, oh yeah, like, you know, the game is becoming increasingly balanced around having every consumable in the game, because otherwise it just isn't challenging, making the content basically impossible or very, very difficult unless you don't have this. And unless you have this, right? And well, Blizzard actually fixed this within their first expansion, funnily enough, with Burning Crusade, and kind of got rid of it at that point. But it's kind of funny that Guild Wars 2 is almost falling into the same trap with fractals and Icebrood Saga Masters and mastery power creep, actually, which, I think they really need to look at that. They've got to watch out for it in the expansion, in my opinion. If they power creep the game further with just extra buttons that you have access to because of masteries, that could potentially be catastrophic. Not only for open world content, but certainly for instance content too. I think instance content, there is no place for anything like that in any instance content. I mean, that's why I think they should get rid of stuff like fractal potions, because if you don't have fractal potions, 100 CM is actually horrible. Like, you'll get flat one shot. You will literally get killed in one shot by a lot of the boss abilities. Even if you're a necro, by the way, you will basically get killed immediately by a lot of these abilities, because they hit so hard because they assume you have the defensive potions. So what's the point of them? In that case, so what's the point of the potion if the game assumes that you have it, right? That means that, you know, just nerf all the numbers down and remove the potion. You've now simplified the content, you've depower creeped the content, and now the game is less stupid because it doesn't just randomly one-shot you. You know, it's not good. It is not good at all. There you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Bit of a sidetrack there.
Yeah, this is a slight sidetrack too, but I think that Agony Resistance should be something consumable and it should cap. Just kind of like luck, like an account-wide thing. I know that's like impossible to change now, but I actually hate Agony Resistance. I think it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's really annoying for new players, right? They get in and they're like, wait, like I kind of get where they're going with it, right? Because it's some kind of armor progression that's not really armor progression. So you go through the fractals, you have to keep upgrading your Agony Resistance so that you can do the higher levels. But let's be real, most players jump in. Well, actually, maybe I shouldn't be so presumptuous, but I think a lot of players jump in and they maybe try out some tier 1 and like, all right, straight to wing 4, right? Because most guilds are going to just pull them into wing 4 and CMs to teach them. So they basically just have to earn like 150 gold or 100 gold or however much it costs now to get 150 AR, and then they just jump into the end ones anyway. So why not just make this a consumable account-wide thing, simplify it so people aren't spending 1 million gold on a bunch of different characters?
Yeah, it's not good at all. I completely agree with that. Cleanse it. We don't need progression. It's the only area of the game that does this as well, right? Like, fractals are really wonky for this exact reason, because fractals are supposed to be probably one of the first things you do in terms of the end game. But actually, they're kind of annoying because you need ascended gear in the set, and you don't need that for raids or strike missions or anything else, right? It's very weird. It's not good. I think that's a topic for another TeaTime though, or another like discussion at some point actually, because I think
I'm just thinking like we got to pray God that they don't put those in those sorts of mechanics like the special action.
Oh no, I don't think they will.
Do. Like don't do anything like that to the new strikes, right? I feel like it just needs to be very simple. You go in, there's the story version, then like the normal version and the CM, and they ramp up in difficulty. The mechanics are meaningful. They feel good to play. You get good rewards for doing them. I hope that they're daily, like the strike missions now, and not weekly. If it's daily, people will play the crap out of them, and it would be so good for the community. I would love to see people playing endgame constantly, because there's a big problem with raids. You do it once, now you're not going to do it again for the rest of the week. So if they fix that with strike CMs, I think that would be a massive boon for the community.
Well, allow me to meme a little bit. I want to bring Mela into the mix here too, actually, for this one there. But do you think current strike missions are popular, guys? Because I'm not sure if they're super popular, to be honest.
I don't think so. It's honestly, I'm not even sure if I want to talk about content, dude. I feel so mad just thinking about it. Like, I'm just like shaking in my chair, thinking, "Oh my god, no! I don't want to talk about this the entire time." No, like I don't think strikes are popular either. Especially the last two. I think it's the last two, right? Like Forged Steel and
Whisper and Cold War, or what?
The two non-boss ones, right?
Oh yeah, Forging Steel and
yeah, like no one's gonna do those because they're just annoying. Like, of course, no one's gonna play them if the last oh yeah, this new striker release isn't doing very well. Oh, let's make another one that is even worse than that. What a great idea, right? Like, yeah, of course they're not gonna do well. I think the single boss ones, it's actually the ones that people play the most. But even those, it's kind of like they might be more popular than raids. I think they definitely are more popular than raids, but that's also because of the fact that, well, I think so. I would think that strikes are more popular than raids, but it's also because you can play them daily instead of just weekly, and people actually farm it from gold, right? So yeah, like I do them every day. A lot of my viewers do those ones every day. No one does like Cold War or the other ones because they're trying to be dungeons, but they're not dungeons. They're trying to be Dragon response missions, but they are not Dragon response missions. Like, this game has never done well with like wave stuff. Like, content is like waves is usually just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm doing an open world meta, but I don't get anything, right? It's the same thing like for early like Dragon response missions. When the Dragon response mission tournament happened, yeah, a lot of people realized, oh my god, this was so much fun to practice and grind. Yeah, those people have never done dungeons. Like, dungeons are literally Dragon response missions without a CM, but they're more puzzly, right? Like you got to jump everywhere, teleport everywhere, like skip the mobs. It's literally just dungeons, but in 2020 or whatever year they came in. I don't know. COVID and stuff made time fly away, but the content in this game is so weird. This is why I didn't want to talk about it. Like, like what Teapot said earlier about content, like easy mode, normal mode, and CM raids cannot ever exist in this game. Like when people look at normal mode raids, like normal mode raids are not normal mode; they're easy/normal mode. And yeah, I know what I'm saying, right? I know exactly what I'm saying. Like most people cannot clear easy mode raid bosses. And they had to make a hybrid of easy and medium exactly because there is no easy mode. So they tried to appeal both audiences, and they messed up for both audiences because there's no way to actually do that. And the CM is literally in sometimes just a normal mode because they cannot make an easy/normal and then like a brutal mode right after, right? Like that just doesn't work. And the fact that now they're doing strike missions that have easy, normal, and hard mode, that kind of gives me a little bit of hopium, right? That finally we have like a 3 difficulty thing, and it's actually gonna be brutal, right? I hope it is. I really hope it is, because otherwise, like, we haven't gotten like a raid for so long. For what? Right? Like, what did we wait for so long for? Like, what do we have 3 difficulty modes for? Like, to just like sit there and like do nothing? Like, I want to go into the new Strike CMs after having waited for so long for like hard content, and actually wish I didn't ask for them, right? Because, yeah, like they finally have the chance of actually doing this, so they should do this, because the content right now in the game is just broken. Like, oh yeah, you know, bone skin are very hard. Yeah, just press special action key after the break where it's broken, and then it dies in 10 seconds. The mechanic should never exist. Because yeah, it helps the little peepos in open world. They can press 1 key and do like 1,000,000 damage. If they do press the key, like that's the thing. Like they don't. That's not how you make the content like playable. It's so weird.
But why? Okay, why do you think there isn't this big take up on strikes then? Because yeah, you were saying that the slower ones aren't that good, and yeah, Whisper of Jawmag definitely trips people up, and I guess so does Bone Skinner. It's why you see LFGs for like easy strikes, right? So Freynear, Sheer Peaks Pass, and Coden, Bear Friends, right? So you see LFGs for that stuff, right? But why? Is it the rewards? Because the rewards is a bit confusing, right? And I think a lot of players are very reward oriented, and I don't think players really recognize how good doing strikes are. Because like doing strikes are actually very good. Like if you actually do strike missions, it's some of the highest gold power you'll actually get, like during your daily routine of doing stuff, as long as you can do it well. Actually, but it's kind of interesting. Right, it's a very, very interesting one there. Like, what's going on here? Like, why are people not taking this up? Like, is it because they just don't know they even exist? Is it because they just, players just, are like a little bit intimidated by that content? Like, if that's the case, then maybe
it's having they have to group up with 9 other people, like that. Just to be completely frank, that's what it is. People don't know how to make a squad. They don't understand how boons work, and so they don't want to. So if somebody actually really wants to try the content, they don't want to be the person that's like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So they will try to hide in the back, or maybe they'll join a group, and maybe they get carried, or maybe they get kicked. People get bad experiences because they get kicked. There's also a big discrepancy in skill, and so people don't want to go in and actually get smushed by strikes. So what happens is you have people that are not very good all get together, and then they get smushed by Bone Skinner and stuff because they just don't know how to mitigate it. They don't have the strats.
Yeah, I also think it's
really just about people don't know how to get into a group, and the skill discrepancy between experienced players and inexperienced players is so high that like they don't want to play together. People have bad experiences, they get kicked, and that's it. Like I've seen in the time that we've been talking about this, I've seen 2 strike LFGs go up on NA. 2. So does that mean I don't know if that reflects how popular they are, but they can be done daily, and it's pretty much the same as raids.
I think it's a combination of things. Like, yeah, like people not understanding how groups are made is one thing. But people don't understand how groups are made in open world and they still kill the content. People don't understand how groups are made in the other strike missions, in the easier one, and still kill the content. Like, the problem is that they did the same thing for raids that they did for Whisper of Jormungand and Bone Skinner. They were like, oh yeah, we made these strike missions. They're very easy, accessible content. What if we try to make one that is neither medium mode, easy mode, or hard mode, and just confuse the shit out of people? And that's exactly what happened with Whisper of Jormungand and Bone Skinner. Because Bone Skinner, it's kind of like Doom CM. There is like 2 mechanics, right? And yet, pressing A on your keyboard or D on your keyboard is like the hardest thing in the world, apparently, right? They could have just not added the mechanic and it would have been on the same level as the other strikes. Or they could have made it maybe only spawns on like the 5 closest targets and it's like less of them. Right?
Well, I mean, Bone Skinner
because nothing trains you to look at what like the visual cues. Nothing trains you to look at the visual cues.
I think Bone Skinner is actually a special case because Bone Skinner is just extremely badly designed, no?
Yeah, I mean, no one does the mechanics because they're worse to do.
Yeah, like good, but like you just out heal everything.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. I mean, the problem is that the mechanic is not what the way you're supposed to do Bone Skinner is by keeping all the torches extinguished, or rather keeping all the torches lit, right, to reduce the pulsing damage. But it's just not. It's not correct to do that, right? It's always wrong to do that. Like you just like stack up and out heal, which funnily enough, it makes in a way it makes the fight more punishing to an extent because it means that you just die, right? If you do fail, you're gonna instantly die. But if you don't, then it's incredibly easy and like literally nothing happens. But I think it's the entirety of I think it is that's the boons thing, right? And people don't understand the game, but I think that's a really difficult one to actually attack, though. Really, I mean, I guess you want to try and introduce players to this concept in open world and like show them what boons do and how that works, I guess. But it's very difficult, like actually getting enough people to be able to understand these concepts and actually make their own groups and kind of get into things. It's I don't know. Like, I just hope that maybe because it will be introduced in the story, players will feel a little bit more comfortable. Right. But there you go.
Hey, I want to touch on a comment here because it's bothering me. Talked about, it's intimidation and that the community is inclusive enough. Here's the other side of that. I let pretty much anyone join with like very, very small requirements, right? And people lie to me constantly. Like every day someone lies to me about their experience level or about what gear they have or their build. Yep. Or whatever, or about knowing the mechanics. Every day, somebody lies to me. So when people say we need to be more inclusive, my response to that is I need people to be honest. I want to include you, but you can't lie to me then. If you tell me incorrect information about your experience level, about your build, about your gear, I can't help you. I actually can't. And so I'm actually just kind of tired of hearing that argument because I've been making it like my life's mission to help people get into raids and this content. And I'm doing everything I possibly can. And yet still people come in and they lie to me. And so what am I supposed to do? How can I possibly help people? A good example of this is I said, I need a DPS player. And somebody said, okay. They came in and they did 7K on Firebrand at Franir. Okay.
Unfortunate.
And so I establish expectations when I have these pug groups, and I put if your DPS is low, I'm going to whisper you and we're going to talk about it. Then you may be asked to leave. So I whispered them, and I said, hey, just so you know, maybe you have the wrong gear on or something because your DPS is really low for what it should be on this boss. To give you an idea, I'm playing Heal Scourge or something. I don't know what I was playing, but you're doing like 4K DPS more than the Druid. That's a full support build. And they said, oh yeah, actually I'm playing Selly. And I went, why are you playing Selly if you said that you were DPS? And they're like, well, it's the only gear I have.
That's also not an excuse, by the way. That's not even bad. Like, there's no way you're doing 7K DPS on Selly.
But anyway, I'm like, well, I'm like, you're not being totally honest with your experience. Like, you're saying that you're doing DPS, but I also had a core necromancer come in and say DPS. And I went, okay, you know, like, I've never seen a core necromancer in any instance content. So I let them sit for a while. And then I finally just said, hey, what does DPS stand for? They didn't know. So
That's pretty cute.
So they were lying to me, right? They actually had no idea what they were getting into. They just wanted to get into the group. Where I'm going with this is that is brutally unfair for those that are trying to help you. Brutally unfair. It is not okay to go into a group and lie about your experience level, lie about what role you're playing, lie about your gear. People want to help you, but you have to say something. If you do say something and people kick you without telling you anything or whatever, then yeah, they're the jerk. I had this happened I was doing a full Wing 4 CM run, and we had a Scourge. We were super cheesing Samurag. We were just stacking Scourges, like heal Scourges and Firebrands with stability. We won poll. We got Samurag CM like that. This Scourge did 3k DPS. I was playing full minstrel heal Scourge, and I did 2k or something. So we assumed, oh, maybe we had a second heal Scourge. But then we kind of looked at the logs and we're like, we didn't. So when we got to Deimos, we said, hey, what build are you running? And they refused to communicate with us until all of us were spamming, can you ping your gear? We want to help you. Like, can you tell us what's going on? They finally pinged their gear, and they had full Ascended Marauders on Scourge, which could be okay.
World versus world. World versus world build.
It's world versus world, right? So we're about to do Deimos CM, and we're like, we need you to epi, right? Like, the reason you're here is so that you can epi, and you're not going to be able to fulfill this, right? And so all of us there were really supportive. We were like, hey, we want to help you. Like, this is the gear you need, but you're not going to be effective in this fight with the gear that you have. And we need, like, this is an experienced group. We need, all of us were like, whisper us anytime. Here's our Discords. You know what the person did? They said, my build is my build. Screw you guys. And they left. Like, that's what I'm dealing with. I want to help, and people lie to me constantly. They stealth in. They don't ask questions. It's super frustrating. So whenever we talk about being inclusive and exclusive, know that there are people that are really trying to help, but their patience is really waning because people lie to us, and it's not okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is why these requirements exist, guys. So like kill proof is because this happens all the time. And like, and again, I don't want to turn this into like a massive circle jerk here, but it is very frustrating. Whenever I do like a Pug Wing full CM, because I do like weekly challenge modes, every single time someone joins who's never done it before and has no idea and doesn't say, right? I actually, by the way, to be clear, I actually don't mind if people who haven't done it join my groups, even if it isn't my weekly challenge mode clear, which, by the way, I'm looking to farm, guys, and just like have some fun and play the game. So realistically, you shouldn't join if you don't know what you're doing. But every single week, I have people who've got no clue. Right, join, like completely clueless, no idea of the mechanics, no idea rotationally, like how to play their class, right? All this kind of stuff.
The reason that I brought what I brought up is because we constantly talk about how there's all these KP issues and stuff. That's what I just brought up is the reason that people require KP.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think KP is stupid. It doesn't measure skill. It has an RNG component to it. It's not good, especially people that are asking for raid KP for strike missions and stuff. I absolutely hate it. What I'm trying to say is that this is the reason that a lot of experienced players don't want to bother helping anymore, because they're constantly lied to. And if people aren't willing to put some onus on themselves and be like, hey, I need to improve or whatever, then and ask questions and lean on the experienced players that do want to help, then then I don't know what to do, right? That's why that's relevant. I still think it's terribly intimidating, and that's the reason that people don't want to join is because they think they're going to mess up or whatever. But the issue is that when people do make groups that are inclusive, that's what happens. I know this from 100% experience. It happens to me almost every day.
Yeah. Well, and this is also why I think our focus and certainly, you know, the community focus should be on actually educating people about core game mechanics. Because I think a lot of people aren't even necessarily doing it like with malice. I think it's just they just genuinely don't understand. Like when people join on Firebrand, do like 7k DPS on Firebrand, they probably think they're actually doing well, right? I don't think players really understand what it means to be good at the game and what it means.
They don't know
effective.
They're doing 5k DPS, right?
Seriously, do you want to know an amazing example? I was doing daily AT, gatekeep AT, of course, late at night. And we played against a team, I'd guess silver, kind of like, I'd say middle of silver they were. And I was there. It was with me, Feifei, Andreas, a.k.a. Drowning in Cum, of course, on his Mechanist there. Good name.
Yes.
And this poor Dragon Hunter, this little peepo, he's 1v1ing into Feifei. And I move him for the plus. We've just killed everyone in the team, but they all entered. They ran in, instantly died within microseconds to our cleave damage. We had like double Reaper, Nade, Hollow, Mechanist, right? And like power. We had a disgusting amount of damage. And this DH, he's off respawn, tries to kill Feifei. And I move over and we destroy him so quickly. Okay, he dies within like 1 second, right? Like he barely even has downstate. We have so much damage with Lich Form, Shroud, right? We're just going crazy. After the game, he whispers me. He says, "Fuck you, MightyTeapot. Are you having fun hacking? I've played 1,000 games. Never before have I seen me die so fast. Okay? Nice hack. You think you won't get hack? You won't get ban and hack because you're a ArenaNet partner?" And I calmly explained that he was playing full Berserker Dragon Hunter and he ran into all of our damage and died like literally so fast because of the cleave that he didn't really have much of a downstate. But then he then said that I record perma. Okay, I played against legend level players. I have never seen this before. Like this is the thing. Okay, it is that it's not a meme. When Mela says people don't know how to press WASD, when Sneb says people do not understand boons, that is not a flame. That is a descriptor. Okay?
I was one of those people, right? Like I only got into raids like a year and a half ago. I did not understand, and I would not create a squad because I did not understand. It took people sitting me down and like explaining the whole thing to me, and even then there were still gaps. So it's not super obvious or easy. It's not taught anywhere necessarily. It is 100% just you don't understand boons. You think you do, but you don't.
Oh yeah, and this is the thing. I actually kind of want to do the other side of this because I think the other side of this is unbelievably important. Actually, just for anyone who's maybe feeling intimidated by raids right now, like the moment that you guys get over the initial knowledge gap, raids become trivial, and I actually mean that as well. I'm not saying that because I'm being dismissive of the content and like, oh, I played the game for years, so of course I would say that. No, I mean I actually mean that. Like when you actually know how boons and compositions work, all the difficulty in the game melts. It just melts away completely. If you go into any raid encounter with like a decent understanding of a DPS rotation, like how to do damage, how to attack while moving, how to revive, right? And having like perma quickness, perma 25 might, perma prot, perma regen, you're running 2 healers, you've got Aegis spam, you've got stability spam, you've got, all these boons on you. All of a sudden, that content becomes very easy. And I'm not just, again, I promise you guys, I'm not saying that because, oh, wow, I've got like 10,000 hours in the game, right? So obviously it's really easy to me. No, seriously, once you get over that initial hump, it's nothing can stop you anymore, right? And do you guys want to know really good evidence of this? Look at the progression times of Wing 1, Wing 2, Wing 3, Wing 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? What you'll notice is that the only exception to this is Doom, by the way, and Kadim, because they have a lot of mechanics. But all of the progression times for bosses went down over time. Why is that? Because when Wing 1 came out, everyone was dog shit at the game. QT was using like fucking heal turret, right, to like survive greens, right, and stuff. But they had like 4 NGs blasting water fields as like healers, right, and they, you know, like that on their first kill, and they nearly enraged the boss. This is at a time when Tempest was probably 50k DPS at the time, and like Herald would auto attack to like 30k DPS plus, right, and they nearly enraged Veil Guardian. But of course, when you get to Wing 4, QT killed Ken in 2 shots, and SC got Demos down within like 3 hours. And of course, Wing 7, the final raid wing, this boss was killed within an hour and a half. Kadim 2 was cleared within an hour and a half. So it is really, like, once you get over the, I understand how this game mode works, I understand how the combat system operates, then the difficulty is gone, right? It melts away immediately. With this stuff. And that's why, you know, Sneb is kind of like so, you know, so kind of going on this, right? Okay, like going big on this stuff, you know, is because of that exact fact. It really just is a lack of knowledge, right? Like that is just how it is. You know, that is the situation. Okay. Yeah, but there it is.
Yeah, Mela, I
What's up?
I heard that I think you have the same thing as me. Your training runs go better than Pugs.
Oh, it's always going to be the case. That is not surprising, I don't think.
Why do you think it is?
That's because whenever you do a training, this is going to sound so dumb, by the way. I'm very aware this sounds really dumb to a lot of people that are watching now, but the reason why a lot of training runs go smoother than a pug run is because the people in the pug groups do not learn the bosses ever in 250 allies of having done them, 250 KP of having done them, 500 allies, 1,000 allies, 2,000 allies. Those people, most of those people are never going to sit down for 3 minutes and watch a guy that Teapot uploaded, watch a guy that I uploaded, watch a guy that Sneb uploaded. They're never going to be asking anyone a single question. They're just going to go into the raid, bash their head against the content until either the content dies or they do. In a training run, people are going to sit there for like 2 minutes before engaging the encounter, learn the mechanics, either in detail or just vaguely right, the important ones anyway. They're going to go in, kill the boss first try, and then you have to tell them, by the way, not every group is going to first try this boss, even though you guys are mostly new. Because otherwise they think that every single person has learned the boss, but in reality that's not the case. Most people just go in, like, headbutt this wall next to me, and like, what the fuck? The wall is not going down. Like, what is happening? Right? The wall is too strong. I don't understand. When you can just like walk around it. Right? I don't know.
So what you're saying is that you, as the trainer, open the door, and you're just like,
"Is the easy way, guys. just go behind the wall, guys. Here's the door."
Don't even use headbutt, just walk through. Yeah. No, I encounter the exact same thing. I think it's for a number of reasons. One, exactly what you said. People take that little extra time that you would spend either in the LFG looking for experienced people anyway, or having to cycle through people as they rage quit after pull after pull. So you spend that time, and usually less time instead, just explaining all the mechanics, being like, here's everything that you're going to see. I'm also going to say the things as they happen. So then everyone's in voice, and that's number 2. Voice is massive. Oh, and not even just voice, just communicating in general. You can type it if you're a fast typer or whatever. Just any form of communication. Like, example, at Doom saying, I missed my green, instead of just letting things play out until people are like, wait, what happened? Right? Or, you know, like saying, don't worry, I've got mortars. You know, like people just don't really communicate in pugs as well. And so if you're in voice, you can just be like, hey, do this thing now. You go there. Here, you go to arrow. And then suddenly everything just works. Sometimes people don't even know exactly why they're doing something, but they know when to go do it, and you can explain it after.
Yeah.
Communication and just some patience with listening to what the mechanics are and how they operate and how you can squash them and make them not do anything is massive in raids. But far too many pugs just try to like rush in and, like you said, headbutt the wall. So.
Yeah,
it's really sad as well. As, like, whenever you join a pug group, dude, for the past like 2 weeks, I've been pugging raids, and it's always Demos. My viewers hate me because it's always Demos hell, right?
You touch the oil,
and always it's always the oil. The end kiter is like, oh, sorry, I dodged out of the platform. It's like I really wanted to try Mechanist, right, because of the beta week, which we will talk about later. And dude, I could not try Mechanist because every time we got to Demos and I wanted to play Mechanist, I had to relock the Scourge because we could not kill the boss otherwise. I was so mad. But it always happens in pugs. People wipe because, oh, we are dying, bad the heals. When in reality, it might not even be the heals that are bad. We just don't have Stone Spirit, and we have, like, I don't know, Search and Rescue or something, right? It might not even be that we don't have prot. It might just be the tank that keeps walking off the platform, right?
Oh, yes.
People that really, like, people that, again, we go back to not understanding boons or whatever. People really fail to analyze what went wrong. And because they have no idea how to figure it out, they would rather just leave and find another group. Like, people that have to leave because maybe emergencies, they found a better LFG that they want to join, their friends are calling them, I don't know, their cat is meowing very loudly or their fish is drowning, like, that's fine, right? But people leave because, oh, this is never going to happen. And then they leave, I tell Druid, go Stone Spirit, and then the boss dies. This happens so often. This is why pug groups just like disband within 1 or 2 attempts, and everyone is so sad, right? It's just like just literally take Stone Spirit. Oh yeah, we killed it. Wow, good job, team. Yeah, amazing, right? I mean, I could not try Mechanist, dude. I just couldn't do it.
Denied.
I had to play Scourge.
You know, speaking of this, I think we should move on from this because I mean, this is gonna go on forever. To be honest, but you know, let's go about this. I love to complain about it. So limited. Honestly, Meat Puppet, if that's what you get from this, then honestly, you have no ability to follow a conversation, and I feel sorry for you, which ironically puts you in the group of people that struggle with raids because they can't communicate. But no, like a lot of this stuff is we're just discussing issues within the community and problems that people have, you know, with the combat system and the way that the game operates and how that leads to frustration and of course friction between the community, because like the big problem here is that you have this divide between players who understand and those who do not, right? And then when you have these groups of players mixing, you end up with a very, very big clusterfuck of toxicity, pretty much, because the players that don't understand don't even really know what they're doing wrong, and the players that do understand, it's very obvious what's going wrong, and they're not having fun trying to carry people, pretty much.
If you think we're just complaining about this, I don't know what to tell you. The 3 people in this call do a crap ton for the community. Guides, raid trainings, showcasing stuff on stream. If you legitimately think that we're just circle jerking about how great we are and how everyone is bad and complaining about it, I think our frustration is actually more, we want to help so badly, but there are big problems and these are big issues and they're very hard for us to tackle. And we just want to do everything we can. And that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where my frustration comes from. It's like, I want to help so badly that I'm frustrated that it's not working as well as I want it to.
Oh yeah, it's very difficult. I think that's the big thing. It's extremely difficult to actually help people understand this stuff. And you know, I think you also really have to battle misinformation, because there's been a bit of discussion in the chat about how like there's always jokes being made at the expense of like new players. Like, certainly with us here, that very rarely happens. I do not consider saying that people struggle with understanding boons to be like a joke at people's expense. I don't think like saying that, oh, you know, people really struggle to like press one button is even really like, I mean, that's not even bad, right? I mean, it's just true. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just accurate.
And I was that person. We've all been there. right? Like, no big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. You know, it's not. I think, you know, like talking about like criticizing people's gameplay, it's not a personal attack. Like if you can't criticize someone's behavior or the way someone plays the game in any way, then how on earth are they ever supposed to improve their gameplay or improve in any meaningful way? It's just not going to happen. Like you have to be able to say like, yeah, you are playing, you know, you are not playing very well. You need to change it. Okay. Because otherwise, you know, you can't get anywhere. Like you can't just say, oh, we're just going to keep you with us and never criticize you in any way. That's just not going to work, right? Ever. Can population can affect this, but also the amount of but also people need to be receptive to criticism. Like people need to be receptive to actually improving, and they need to understand. And this is the big thing, and you can kind of blame Guild Wars too. I think this will be kind of the final word. I want to talk about at least a little bit of the elites, which is actually a very linked topic, by the way. Learning new mechanics is very lots of controversy actually going on about learning new mechanics, particularly with Specter. So we'll get to that very shortly. But the thing is that, you know, well, no shit, Rufus Kit, you know, this is not my first rodeo. Like, what do you think I'm doing? Do you think I'm like, oh yeah, you're complete dog shit at the game, you do 2 DPS? No, obvious. I'm going to say like, hey man, you know, like you want, you know, when it comes to rotation, you know, it's really important to look at, you know, reducing the time between your attacks, upkeeping your key skills, and using your defensive support. I'm not just going to say, yeah, you're complete garbo, uninstall the game, kid. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, no shit. Like, that's not how this works. But, you know, regardless of this stuff here, like the point is that, you know, we need to be able to actually help people, you know, people need to be actually receptive to criticism. Otherwise it's just not going to go anywhere. You can't do anything. Dude, I kind of lost my train of thought there as well. God damn it. But yeah, like, that is the big problem there, guys. That is the situation. But there you go. There you go. But no, I mean, ultimately, if people get discouraged by this kind of stuff, then honestly, they're not cut out for it. Because, you know, it's not really a big thing here, right? Like in any way, right? Like it just isn't that way in the community. Yeah, there are some toxic elements, but the idea that this is like the big narrative being pushed by the entire community is just not realistic, guys. Okay, you know, that's how it is, right? That's just not the case. Okay. But how to play the one? Oh yeah. Like, oh, sorry. I regained my train of thought, guys. Okay. Here with this, like, okay, sorry to kind of ramble on here a little bit, but the really big problem that I think you have in Guild Wars 2 is that, right, guys, I'm gonna drop a bomb here. Right? I'm gonna let off a bomb. Okay.
Oh no! Don't do it.
There is a right way to play Guild Wars 2, and there is a wrong way to play Guild Wars 2. This is a very uncomfortable idea to a lot of players, but it is a reality. If you play 5 thieves in PvP, you will not do well. If you play, okay, yeah, if you play like 10 carrion core engineers in a raid, it's not going to go very well for you, particularly if you're only using medkit auto attacks and nothing else, because you'll just like literally do 0 DPS. You will lose.
Here's the thing with that, Teapot.
What?
I am the one that bought my game. You didn't buy it for me, so I can play however I want, even though I am surrounded by 9 other human beings that I am not friends with in any way or do not agree to my decisions.
Yep.
Imagine putting that in any other context, right? Like imagine you go to work and people are like, we really need somebody who knows content marketing here. Like we desperately need this person, or a web dev. We really need a web dev. And somebody goes, well, I'm really good at carpentry. And you're like, no, but we actually need a web dev. And you're like, are you telling me my carpentry isn't good enough for you? And you're like, no, your carpentry is fine, but just in this context, we need you to be a web dev. And they're like, screw you guys. And then they go to their carpentry guild and they tell everybody that you're toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually true.
And this is what I mean, like, because the battle that, you know, the community has, the raid community, like, you know, because are there toxic members in the raid community? Absolutely, yes. But the thing is, we have to battle against an insane amount of misinformation as well. Like, a lot of people say that, you know, or I can guarantee you there are a lot of people that say Sneb is toxic. 100%.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There
I have
is
a reputation.
Oh yeah, that's true. And you know, Mela, Mela's been a bit of a frisky boy. So he's had his twit longer moment. He had a Reddit thread made about him. He got exposed, okay, about this. I believe it was. Was it 100 cm? I believe it was a 100 cm expose where Mela got annihilated in debate. Okay, by a guy made like an 8-page Google Doc on him. It was fucking good, dude.
Days.
Yeah. It was good shit. But the thing is that we also have to battle this at the same time. And yeah, like there is a reputation that the raid scene is toxic, but it's kind of bullshit. Right? It's not kind of bullshit. It is flat bullshit. In general, the raid scene is honestly not that toxic, right? In general, like honestly, dude, I've seen more toxicity from like a failing Octo. Seriously, like if you like one burn south, people get mad. Okay, they get big mad, guys. Okay, it's not gonna go well, right? It gets a little intense, about the place there too. So it's not any more toxic than anywhere else. It's just that here you're going to get rejected for not understanding the game, where you're never going to get rejected for not understanding the game in basically any other game mode, which is why you have this reputation. So this definitely is like a two-sided thing there as well. Like, yeah, not only do we have to like be absolute perfect paragons of virtue, like actual fucking priests, okay, that without the fucking diddling, obviously, okay, and and we have to simultaneously deal with people who are complete assholes to us every single day, right? I have to deal with someone who has no respect for me or my time or anyone in the group's time at all. I have to deal every single day with people who join a raid group and have no clue, right? And basically leech the raid and anchor everyone down and waste everyone's time, right? That's a daily occurrence if you are kind of a regular raider. Same in fractals as well, right? You will, look, I've joined like high KP groups for 100 CM and they've never done it before. Very obviously, because here's the thing, guys, that you might think, oh, I've watched a guide, I know what to do. Guys, I'm going to tell you another like huge truth bomb here, guys. If you haven't done it before, I can tell immediately. It is extremely obvious, right? Watching a guide is not going to fool me because you don't know shit, okay? About this encounter. If you haven't done it before, anyone who knows what they're doing will be able to identify you as someone who has no clue within seconds of playing the raid, okay? Unless it's saying like, Mercer Overseer, then maybe not, right? It's going to be a little bit harder to tell then, okay? So this is the problem. I think that the standards that get applied to the raid scene are insane compared to the people trying to get into the raid scene. We have to tolerate every single person who refuses to learn, okay? Every single person who like lies about kill proof, lies about this, okay, and we are not even allowed to criticize players' gameplay. Like this is, ironically enough, this is an unbelievably toxic and one-sided interaction between these two things. We have to concede everything, right, and accept all of the horrible behavior by players who are outside the game mode. Otherwise, they're just going to call us toxic. I'm sorry, guys. That's not how it works, right? Respect is mutual. I do respect new players. I mean, look, dude, I am probably responsible for an untold number of people clearing raids who honestly probably shouldn't have been able to, right? I'm sorry, I apologize, right? I have dragged people through content without kicking them. I have been in 12-hour Demos CM runs, okay? Seriously, I was doing this shit. Like, I was in this Demos CM with Shadownin. He started talking about like wearing a dress at some point. Like he wasn't even talking about Guild Wars 2. Like he was like, I'm going to wear a dress to prom. Like I don't even know where that comes from. That's how insane it gets. Like, like these raids get so intense, so out there that you don't even know what the fuck's going on anymore. Right. Like that's what's going on there. Oh no, dude. I don't think you guys actually want what you say because you didn't talk about your sculpted identity. No, there's the thing, okay? I'm a really bad target for that. I can't really speak for Mela and Sneb, but trust me, like, being good at video games is nothing to do with my identity. I don't even really consider myself to have a particularly strong sense of identity, really. I just do shit, man. I just run around flailing my arms around. I have no ego attached to Guild Wars 2 in any way, right? In fact, the thing that I'm most invested in is actively getting new players into the game, which, by the way, I've been working on for a very, very long time. You look, Meat Puppet, I hate to engage with chat on a podcast, but you don't know me, okay? And it's very obvious, because if you knew my history in the game, okay, if you knew my history of like what I do in the community, and certainly the other gentlemen on this podcast as well, you would realize how absurd that statement really is. Like, the people standing before you are some of the people who have actually probably trained like some of the most people in raids historically out of almost anyone in the entire game, right? And showed people the way and created an unbelievably welcoming community in terms of raids, like endgame, like PvP. Hey, even World vs. World. I used to run like a massive like community World vs. World guild too. I'm sorry, man. You're barking up the wrong tree. Okay,
I started calling myself the Tinder for raids on NA because people just have to fill out a form and then I match them together. So
we need them more than they need us. If we want more content, yes, but that doesn't mean that they can just abuse us completely. I agree that, you know, the hardcore audience requires the more casual player base. I don't have a problem with that, but just because we need them more than us does not mean that we should like basically give them a free license to like slander us, right? And like call us all toxic, right? Just because we have basic requirements, because the content requires that as well, right? There it is.
I'm really confused. I'm engaging with chat now because I'm just blown away. Like I've there have been a few times I train people almost every time I stream for almost the entire time that I stream. This is like 15 to 20 hours plus a week at times, right? And there have been lots of times when I've wanted to quit because I'm just so tired of all of the criticism, right? You're not doing it right this way. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You're toxic. You're not being nice enough to players. And I just go, I don't know what else I can do. Like I've sat down before and I've brainstormed and I've mind mapped, like, how can I help people? What can I do? And then no matter what, we get people that unleash on us, right? That say, you have egos and you do this and you're just doing this because of X, Y, and Z. I guarantee that everyone in this call right now, if they didn't care about the community and care about people's success, then they wouldn't give even a fraction of a second to helping new players. They wouldn't care at all. I'm telling you, everyone in this call spends an intense amount of time trying to help players. Are we perfect? No. Do we sometimes maybe offend somebody? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But we're doing our best. And if you don't think that our best is good enough, then help us. We want the help. We absolutely want the help. But it is immensely frustrating to constantly be told that what you're doing isn't good enough. Just keep that in mind. I think that's why we're discussing this in the way that we are. Like, we're very passionate about this. We're not trying to offend less experienced players or anything. We're just saying, we want to help so badly, and then people keep going after us. That's where this is, right? That for me is how I feel constantly. I know I'm not even good at the game. I tell people that all the time. If you want to go see somebody really good at the game, then go watch MightyTeapot, The Accent, anybody in Snow Crows. Like, if you want to go see somebody really good, then go watch them. Like, I'm not even that good. I just care a lot. And so I find it like it's just immeasurably annoying when people are like, oh, you just have egos, or you just have this big, you're better than everyone because you stream. I just stream because I like it. I don't make like a ton of money.
He's not even a ArenaNet partner.
I'm not an ArenaNet partner. I'm not a Twitch. I just like the community and want to help. And so reading all this criticism about how we help people, why we help people, I'm just like, boy, should I help people? Right? Like, what do I have to do? Right?
I wanna give 2 quick examples, and then we can actually talk specs.
Yeah, I want to break free. Break me free.
I just want to give I want to give Twitch chat and people listening on YouTube kind of like an example, right? What would you guys do? Okay, I'm doing raid training and explaining every boss first try. Sometimes even GGing at like 5% because the run was so smooth. I just want to make sure that people actually get the mechanics properly, and it's not, it's not like an actual carry, even though most people are new. And everything is going so smooth, so nice, so much fun. And then someone in chat is like, "Oh, why did he not explain this mechanic this way?" Dude, okay. I know some people were there. I had a mental breakdown on stream 2 weeks ago training Sabata because one person in the squad that joined me to help run the raid training and 2 people in the Twitch chat were like, "Oh, you didn't explain this way." I was like, yeah, because that's not how the mechanic works, right? I had like a 15-minute mental breakdown, muted on Discord, so they couldn't hear me, of course. Dude, I could not take it anymore. It was unbelievable. I was like, dude, just go, just join and do the training yourself. Oh, I don't know the boss. What the fuck then? Like, are you serious? Like, what? Why are you like flaming the commander for like teaching people the raid boss when you don't know the raid boss? Just like watch and learn. Why is this so hard? Like, what would you do if someone joined your raid training? I had this happen twice as well, to this degree anyway. Like, we were talking about people earlier, like that like troll or lie about their experience in raids. I had 2 people ever. It's not that many, I guess, maybe, I don't know. I had a guy joining my raid training and trolling me for like 15 minutes. I was trying to make him understand how to use Discord for like 15 to 20 minutes. It got to a point where I just told him that he could just not join, right? It was literally fucking trolling me. I told him like how to use Windows, how to use Discord for like 10 to 15 to like 20 minutes. It was like, in a way, the way I see it is like you are wasting time of people that actually want to learn the raid. Right? It got to the point where I just said that he should like leave the group. I didn't even kick him. I just asked if he could leave so I could get someone else, right? And then he started flaming me, and then I kicked him. And like 2 people in chat went, "Oh, that was so toxic. It just couldn't use Discord." No, it could use Discord. It just didn't want to, right? And this happened again. Like, what would you guys actually do if you're like trying to help like a bunch of people and this one guy is like, "Oh, actually, I don't want you to do that," or "Oh, actually, this is how you do that." Like, would you guys actually just like sit there for 3 hours and get trolled by this like one random dude that's like stopping you from helping other people? If you would actually sit there for like 2-3 hours and get trolled, I don't even know what to say. I respect that, right? I will like shake your hand, maybe virtually because COVID, but like seriously, I am never going to be okay with that. Like, you do not join my groups, troll when I'm like to like teach people the game, and then call me toxic. Because yeah, I might be a little bit toxic if you're like literally interrupting like a raid training or like interrupting me teaching players. Because why would you do that? Like, you want me to do that, right? Like, you guys, you will behave the same way is what I'm trying to say, right? Because this is just normal. Like, yeah, we have to deal with this every single day, and we deal with it every single day. But this is why stuff like KP, this is why people sometimes ask for KP. This is why, can I join for strikes? Yeah, sure, you can join for strikes. Have you ever done them before? Like, what I don't know, what do you struggle? What is your build? Just be honest with people. And also, honestly, dude, I don't want to say it on the podcast, but just like don't troll, guys, right? That's all I'm going to say. Like, trolling is very bad.
I love trolling.
Same, I guess. I don't know.
And you know what I like more than trolling? I like Specter.
Yeah.
Nearly as much as I love Surfshark VPN. But, never mind that, guys. Right. Let's go. Also, it's not as a topic. If you don't like it, leave. Okay? Boom! There it is. Okay. Specter enables. Let's go. So we've got all the elite specs, guys. They're in the game. They're fully activated. They're all over the place, guys. You know, we've got Specter, we've got Untamed, we've got the Mechanist. Now, we can talk about the balance. They do big damage, so Untamed doesn't do any damage. They all actually work pretty well in PvP. But I think there's something very, very interesting actually here with Specter. And that actually is that Specter has added a totally new mechanic to the game. Okay. And I was actually really, I was a bit worried, and I actually am still worried they might, in a way, like go back on it a bit with the way it works. Because I think people really don't like the way it is because it's so different to everything else in the game. It's like very different the way it actually plays out. Particularly in PvE, there's nothing like that, that plays out so far. And I was really upset actually because a lot of people wrote it off as like garbage. Oh, it's unplayable. It's like blah, blah, blah. I think though, kind of on the same topic we were talking about previously, right? Is that I think a lot of players just were unwilling to adapt to the new playstyle and didn't really want to play it, even though actually it does turn out to be very, very strong. I think Specter's very good. Like in PvP, just for reference, guys, it's very strong. Like the numbers on it are very high and will probably get nerfed very hard, actually. But even in PvE, there are a few builds that you can play that are very strong, right? Like you can play DPS and do like 51k DPS on the golem just by targeting allies, more or less. But the support build is actually quite good. It's very hard to play effectively, I think. But seriously, like the support build is really good. There was this amazing kill I had on Lagos where I would like cross to the other side, drain all my shroud, instantly revive people, and then go back again. Like it was like ambulance thief there. It was amazing. It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a really fun and engaging thing to play, mostly because it was so different. This idea that you want to target, right, allies, right, target enemies and go back and forth like that. Well, you know, and yes, good point there, Twitch chat, seeing as we're interacting with chat today. This was the thing that a lot of people said, like, oh, they don't like the fact that you have to interact with the UI. Well, guys, I've actually got some really bad news. This was actually a really key mechanic in high-level gameplay, and it basically has been for a very long time. In Guild Wars 2, there's something called retargeting, right? Skill retargeting. And this is very important, by the way, to be able to do this. So for example, like if someone dodges your ability in PvP, if you quickly click on someone else or tab onto someone else, it will actually cast a spell on them instead of the person who dodges. This is something that you should already be doing. Like if you, in terms of like tabbing between targets and raids, you should already be doing that right now. That is the correct way to play the game. Just so everyone's aware, like you should do that. It's actually a really important part of playing well. And there's even a hotkey, right, for tabbing onto allies. You just need to bind that and then Specter becomes a lot more playable. But I definitely found it interesting to see the response there, and kind of makes me think, it really does make me think actually that it's been far too long. You know what's happened, boys? Okay, you know, let's be a little bit controversial. I want to farm a few, you know, like angry takes here. Okay, let's go. Let's go a little spicy. It has been far too long since any significant shakeup of Guild Wars 2, and people are used to never learning anything new.
I mean, that's just true.
Okay. Boom.
Yeah, I mean there hasn't been any like super significant update in a long time. So yeah.
Meta hasn't changed. Meta hasn't changed whatsoever. Basically any game mode's been stagnant for fucking years. Right? It's the same shit. We're playing the same builds over and over and over again. And now it looks like everything's going fucking crazy. Like there's loads of new like dynamic mechanics coming out there with the expansion. Particularly, funny enough, on Specter, actually. Specter's very, very out there. And people aren't ready for it, right? They can't handle it. It's too much. But you know what? Listen, I say to you, do not be afraid of the Specter. Do not fear the Specter. Learn the new mechanic. Embrace the fresh gameplay. Wait until it gets a bit polished, because there are a few things that need to be adjusted mechanically. There's a few bugs on Specter that are actually really annoying, but they'll be gone by the game coming out, and it'll be fun. Boom. There you go. That's my take.
Issue I have with Specter is that, yeah, it does a lot of damage. It's a cool new mechanic thing, right? But playing with the UI is something that me and just like many other like old school PvE players, I guess, like, I've never really had an issue with, because you always had to play with the UI in one way or another in like raids. You know, like let's say there's like 3 people downstate, which you want to rest the druid first, or like the healer Tempest first. You need to click on the UI to rest the correct person. It's just easier, right? Or you want to click on the UI, you know, doing like a raid progression. You want to click on the UI to like ping in chat a boss buff, so that after you wipe, because it's like, you know, there's no guys, the boss just came out, you can actually read what it does. Like you've always had, in one way or another, very significant or not, you had to play with the UI at some point. But I do think that a lot of people are going to struggle playing Specter because of the fact that it's very UI reliant. Or you need to like click on allies with your mouse. And sometimes when there's a lot of allies, when there's clones, pets, a giant char blocking the view, or a giant mechanist golem, it becomes a little bit difficult.
Yes.
And yeah, the game does have keybind for nearest ally and next ally, but that is not enough. Sometimes the ally you want to target is not the nearest. Like that would require such good positioning that no one is, that is realistic and never going to happen in like any group. Like, look, we kind of bleed into previous topics, but if people struggle to press WASD and Bone Skinner, guys, like they're not going to stand next to each other to buff each other with like Specter, right? It's impossible to see unless you like really good groups like record grinding or whatever. So I really like the idea, but I think they should either give like custom UI, a little bit more anyway, or give like the UI in raids in this game has like this weird thing where, oh, I am the first one in the top left, but in reality for everyone else I am not in the top left. I am like all the way to the right or something like that. Like that's a little bit weird. They should probably fix that and give you like the keybinds for like that exact ally you want to click on. That is like, dude, that is like an infinite amount of keybinds. But doing stuff like that for like
50
Specter
keybinds
players,
for the full squad.
Yeah, right. Like doing stuff like that for people that really want to min-max playing Specter would actually be a big help. Or make it so that you can only click on actual players instead of clicking on like clones and stuff like that. Like you need some kind of customization. Otherwise, there's going to be very few people that are not going to get flamed in pug groups when they're playing Specter and they'll give like quickness to the correct players or whatever, right? I do like the spec, besides the fact that you get randomly teleported all the time. I don't like those kind of mechanics at all, and I never did. But I definitely see it. You know, I definitely see Teapot like tuning into the stream, and he's either playing Scourge or Specter. Finally, like he's playing something else that does the exact same thing. Because ArenaNet was like, oh, it would be really good to listen to everyone and finally nerf Scourge because it's so busted. But what if we made another one?
Purple Scourge.
and it's purple. And it shadow steps everywhere. Like the rest power that Scourge has, it's now insta. And it's like across the map. So yeah, I think it's cool. But it will be like, it's already really strong, right? I think it will be strong and actually very much playable for everyone if they added a couple of extra things to make it easier to play for basically everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, the only thing holding it back, particularly the support variant, from being ridiculously overpowered is usability. Like 100%. Like, well, I think it's currently bugged because there's the trait that means when you drop Shroud, you revive people basically. But I don't think it's actually supposed to heal down states. Almost certain it's not supposed to do that. So what the trait does is it says it gives AoE healing to everyone around you, 5 targets, when you leave Shroud, consuming all of your Shroud. But it actually targets downstate players too. So in other words, you can revive people by leaving Shrouds in a 600 radius with an instant cast, which is obviously quite overpowered. But the thing is, I'm almost certain it's not intentional, that it's supposed to be that way, because if they actually make it more usable, because right now it's really weird because it prioritizes your subgroup, so you kind of can't revive people in the other subgroup, which is super weird, right? You wouldn't expect it to be that way. If they actually fix that, it will be literally more broken than Heal Scourge. Because you can insta revive like 5 people every 10 seconds or so, which, I mean, look, Scourge is pretty good, guys, but it can't do that. And the only advantage that Scourge will have is that you have Transfusion, which is actually a very good mechanic. And you can just, I guess, you have Pulsing Revive, so you can like hand revive people, which is sometimes better. Like if there's a lot of pressure, then loads of people start going down. That's when Scourge is really good. And Specter is super weird, actually. I feel like it's one of those specs that right now, it's actually absurdly overtuned. It's just so difficult to get value out of it that it's actually balanced, you know? Well, not balanced, but it's brought down from like the complete like apex predator of Guild Wars 2 because it's actually really difficult to get value out of in raids. Because you have enough numbers to easily give like 10 target quickness with this build. Not like it's easy, not even difficult to do that, like because the numbers are so high, right? You could heal everyone, you could barrier everyone, right? You know, give everyone quickness. Then you can have someone else do 5 target alacrity in the other group. Your Mechanist giving 5 target alacrity while you give alacrity in your subgroup too. You can insta heal, you can revive people. It's pretty insane like how strong it really is. But yeah, it's definitely held back by usability for sure. There definitely needs to be a bit more hotkey support for it. It's definitely a great time to add UI customization as well, like being able to drag the squad UI above your combat bar would be ideal. Honestly, just being able to customize everything would be a huge quality of life for pretty much every player in the game for sure. And just like some bugs need to get fixed. For example, like a lot of the abilities are really weird the way they work. Like for example, if you target someone in the group with the beam, it won't necessarily even hit the person you target. It will hit the 3 closest people to you, which is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What? So that means that it is essentially unusable currently in a squad because you just can't hit who you want to hit with your abilities a lot of the time, which is not good. And it does, you know what? I want another hot take, right? Specter actually exposes that Thief, maybe not a very good idea for PvE. Okay, maybe Thief should be bad. Because it turns out that having no cooldowns just means that so you just spam your best move over and over again. And yeah, that's basically Specter, right? The only ability you actually want to use on Specter is your best move, and you just keep pressing it over and over again. There it is.
Yeah. For me, like you all suggested, Specter absolutely highlights the need for UI changes. I just want to give, imagine if they made all UI customizable. One big problem that I have, and please tell me if anyone else struggles with this, because I'm starting to think I'm the only person that struggles with this, but on things like Doom or Zera, where there's text that pops up, the text is so small and it's like right underneath where my health bar is, but that's not where my eyes focus. My eyes are focused on the middle of the screen. So I actually never see the text unless I'm like darting my eyes around. If I could make the text bigger and pop up in the middle of the screen, I would actually know that the mechanic is happening based on the text. But I've just learned all the timings. But I think that other people struggle with this because newer players, they go, what text? They tell me like they don't see it. So anyway, I'm excited that Specter is shaking things up a bit. I personally feel it's a bit strange to have one target stuff when so much of the game has just been about AoE. I almost think it kind of goes against what they've wanted Guild Wars 2 to be in the past, but maybe that's not a bad thing. So I don't know. We'll see what becomes of it. But for now, the fact that I would have to click on people's little squares concerns me slightly, because if I'm looking in the corner, like I'm doing it right now, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm looking in that corner, then not only am I not seeing the text, but I'm not seeing anything that's happening with the boss.
Yeah, I think that's why it needs to be central, right? Like, so you can be looking forwards and also, clicking on stuff. But I think the ideal would be just like having it with keybinds, right? So you can like tab through allies very quickly, not including fucking minis. Stuff like that. That's like a really weird thing that's how it works. Like there should be like a hotkey for select the lowest HP ally, for example, as well. So you can like boom, like zap that guy like with the lowest HP. A bit more hotkey support. I think it can be super dynamic. Funnily enough, we're actually talking about this from a very PvE centric standpoint. In small scale PvP, this actually works really fucking well, because obviously in PvP you aren't always stacked very often, and in PvP, if clicking on people, like targeting an enemy, is very common. This is actually one of the most important techniques in PvP. So from a player versus player perspective, there's literally nothing new with Specter. Like all you're doing is targeting allies instead of enemies, which, well, you were actually doing that anyway sometimes, right? Like you would often target allies too, mostly to target them and BM them, like with like the target mark to indicate that you want them to do something. Very important there for PvP guys. Okay, very important.
True.
Someone's pushing far off respawn, hit him with the control T and the question mark, dude. There it is, the question mark ping. Spam it on them, right? That's how you communicate in ranked PvP. But yeah, so it works really well there. It just mostly struggles in like group content because you're just so stacked all the time. But adding some hotkey support will be trivial to fix that, I think. And Specter will end up being a really interesting specialization, I think, for PvP. And a really big, real big different thing. And I do like that. And I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, to see this mechanic rolled out to other professions. Like, for example, I think I could very easily see this added to, say, Druid. Like Druid staff auto attack. Maybe you can target allies.
Yeah, oh, dude.
Right?
That's the same thing I thought about. I was like, dude, it would be really cool if they actually add stuff like this, but only to certain skills of other supports. Like, for example, Druid auto attack. Only the auto attack, but, other classes as well. I think that would be really cool, actually.
Yeah, because...
I'm going to ask a dumb question here, because I didn't play a ton of Spectre. I just sort of lived vicariously through others. But when you're targeting people, can the little beam thing, does it get impeded by people that walk through it, or when people walk through it, does it have other abilities or anything?
Wait, which beam? Which beam? You mean like the tether mechanic?
Not the Druid one. Yeah, the Spectre mechanic. If you
the beam doesn't matter. Yeah, you can't cut it or anything.
Yeah, I think it would be really neat if they implemented stuff like that in the future. Not for Spectre necessarily, but I'm just thinking like chains at Whisper. If you touch the chain, you take damage. What if you touch the, just kind of sort of like Druid, right? You touch the thing, you get healed, and I think that could be neat.
So you can like heal everyone with the tether. I mean, that could be kind of cool. Could be like a pretty interesting usability improvement.
It doesn't necessarily have to be Spectre, but like playing off that mechanic more in the future, if they choose to do that, I think could have some interesting mechanics.
Yeah, for sure. I think that could be good because you could do stuff like just target the tank, and then all of a sudden you can heal the tank and get value on the rest of your group too as well, which is
precisely
cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think so. That's pretty cool. Because in general, one thing that a lot of healers lack in Guild Wars 2 is spot healing. For example, if you're on staff Ellie, right, you can't throw your auto attacks at someone. You have to, and this was incredibly funny actually. When Plenix was when we were doing Wing 4 CM for the first time, Demos CM, he was kiting Demos CM on Ellie. Like he had his camera facing down, like auto attacking the ground, right? Because it's very difficult to actually target yourself or target other people like with the auto attack and like splash people with it. It's a very unusual way to go about playing the game. That was a good time, guys. Okay, like he was hand kiting Demos, like literally auto attacking the ground for like 5 hours. That was good content, right? That was a good time, guys. It was enjoyable, right? That was when the best DPS build was like fucking like Core Ranger as well, by the way.
Core Condi Ranger.
Core Condi Ranger. Man, how things have progressed. Goodness me. But yeah.
If we're done with Spectre, what do we think about
Mechanist? Right. I'm bringing the hammer. It's a roleplay spec. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, but it's a roleplay spec.
Wait, that's it? That's all you have to say?
That's all I got to say. And it will do good. Okay. It will probably do good damage in PvE. And I'd like to see them actually work the support build to be a really strong, actually. I think that could be super cool. Because NG doesn't really have like a proper support. It has Scrapper, but not really, right? Like not in the same way as, say, Tempest is a support. Right, so I'd like to see them kind of push that angle a bit more. It can give Might, Fury, and stuff like that now, and it gives Alacrity too, which is pretty cool. You have Barrier and Healing, which I think is actually really nice, like having that double thing, because not a lot of builds have that, right? Scourge has Barrier, not much healing. Tempest has loads of healing, but no Barrier, for example, right? So I actually think that having both in one package actually is very powerful. Having Barrier and loads of green numbers is super cool actually on Mechanist. So that's the angle I like to push it. But I mean, I really hate to say it. I think there aren't really enough buttons. They need to add more buttons. Like for example, there needs to be a hotkey for mech go stand over there. Right? So you can put like an AoE down and the mech will go where you want it to go. right? Because right now you're going to get held back so fucking hard by the AI in the game that it's going to run into some very serious usability problems, I think, down the line when it comes to managing the AI. This is definitely true in PvP. Right now, there are a few bugs in PvP that make it really good, and it turns out that a mech auto-attacking you for like 3k crits is pretty good. Like there's just too much damage on the mech, right? But you know what? I will hold by this statement, by the way. I actually don't think you would play Mechanist in the current meta in PvP. Like if the monthly AT was tomorrow and you were allowed to play the elite specs, I actually don't think people would play Mechanist. Because I think the AI is too easy to abuse, it's too vulnerable, it's useless if the mech dies, right? So even though it is actually really good at 1v1ing stuff, I don't even think you'd see it play right now, simply because having all of your power, all of your strength loaded into the AI handicaps you so hard, because all of these key techniques like positioning, kiting, dodge rolling, right, are so integral in PvP and world versus world. We kind of bundle those two together that the AI cannot function in this way. Ranger gets away with it because one, it has two, so when one pet dies, it can swap, but also the Ranger itself has a lot of power, right? You've got a lot of power, it turns out the fucking like 8k mauls are pretty good. Okay, and like 27k HP, it's quite strong. Entangle, right? These are all great. So Ranger gets away with it, particularly now with Untamed, by the way, because you've got even more control. More on that later, I guess. But yeah, Mechanist, I don't know. I think it just lacks it's going to struggle to be super functional, in my opinion, outside of PvE, where it will eventually end up as being like, kind of like a middle of the road support, I imagine, for this. I could see it being really good in speedruns with like a Alacrity DPS hybrid.
Yeah,
I see it, but outside of that, for more general play, I think it will struggle to do anything super crazy. But it is very cool. The role play, trait design, it's very good. The mech looks awesome. The mech is high energy. I love the mech. It's very cute. Boom.
So from stuff that I tried for Mechanist, because there's one I actually played the most. The other two I just kind of logged on them. I was like, okay, this is busted. Okay, this is Soul Beast, but the scrapped version, and they just released it now. Like Mechanist, it's core Condi Engie from like pre-HEOT and HEOT. It's exactly the core Condi Engie build you used to play that did a lot of damage and was really complicated to play for a lot of people. And you're basically playing the piano, right? This was like the piano class. Everyone is like scared of Condi Weaver nowadays, but that's because they have never played core Condi Engie. And core Condi Engie, but instead of having the tool straight line, because you're not a core spec anymore, you have Mechanist, and you have a pet that will do damage. So you literally just the old rotation, the old spec, but you do more damage. And I think that's cool, because it does do a lot of damage. And you have a pet. So if you can play it really, really well, your DPS will be really, really high. If you can play it very, very well, as you said, it's a role play spec. It will actually help people that just kind of play the game casually a lot. For example, in open world, right? Like a lot of people are going to be, bashing their head against Chuck Errant until it dies. The golem will actually be doing most of the damage for them. And that's actually really good. So it's like this, it's very two extremes, to like a completely opposite to each other, right? Like the golem is like carrying the damage for a lot of people that play the game just kind of, casually and stuff. But if you play it really, really well by using all kits, it does a lot of damage, which like the whole 4 kits thing, in my opinion, is really, it shouldn't be a thing. Because when I was trying it, I was like, oh, dude, I can use the Condi Signet with the last Grandmaster trait, so that when I activate the Signet, I'm doing damage, and I also keep the condition damage buff on me. So all the Condis that I apply do a lot of damage. Like it just sounds so cool, but in reality, having like an extra kit is more damage. I think the kits need to be like nerfed a little bit, maybe, if they want core Condi Engie to not be a thing, because rotation is like way too complicated. But But I don't think it's a bad thing to have like two complete opposites of each other. And also for the support spec, it's really strong. You give a lot of barrier. You give way too much might. It's insane. You give alacrity. The cool thing about that is that you can actually, let's say you have a mechanic or you got like rest someone, you can go and do that. Your golem is still giving might, alacrity, and fury and stuff, right? So I think that's really cool. But it's 5-man. And because POF is in the game, 5-man is not good enough. So they should probably nerf the POF specs. Like you would never take this over like an alacrity renegade, because it's 5-man alacrity. It's not 10-man alacrity. So if they bring it on in the line with everything else, so they bring the old specs in line with these ones, I think support Mechanist can also be really good. Not only DPS, and also the hybrid one is one that once maybe it comes out and people actually try test it with the changes they might have made to it. I think it also has like a very, very high chance of getting played. I do really, really like Mechanist for casual high DPS support. I think it kind of does everything, but the pet AI is very scuffed, and that's the only problem I have with it, really.
All right, are you ready for me to unleash on Mechanist?
Sneb, NG main. Sneb is an NG main, guys. Unchained. Look, bring the pain.
For months, I waited to hear about Mechanist. I theory crafted. I said, what if NG got a golem pet, right? Like, I was just so hyped for that. I was like, that would be so neat. However, my vision of it was very different. I thought it would be more like Soul Beast, where you would like merge with like Iron Man, jump in the suit, and then it would, instead of heat going up, it would just be like you have time to be in the golem, and then you got to go back out, and then there's a cooldown for it. I thought that could be pretty cool. Maybe that replaced your F5 or something, kind of like what Scrapper is. So I was pretty excited for this. Okay, I thought it would be neat. However, I just don't like it very much. And here's why. I think that in theory, having the golem's skills change with the traits was kind of a neat idea. The problem is that invalidates a lot of your utility skills. You're just going to use kits. So yeah, like Mela said, the kits either need to be nerfed or everyone's just going to use... It's just like playing Core NG. So to me, I'm like, Core NG with a pet? Okay, I guess. But then there's the problems with the AI, which are kind of whatever. But for me, I think that they could, if they had, I think maybe they just don't have the time to do something like this. But I think this was suggested last time on TeaTime, where if they had made it so that the utility skills changed what the golem did, they could have so much more customizability with that. And that would have made it so that instead of just using kits, there could be a big trade-off. Well, if you use the kit, then that golem skill maybe isn't as good, right? So maybe having to use an elixir would make the golem skill more powerful. And so as a result, there'd be more diversity in the utility skills you use on engineer, and that could have been really positive. However, now we're just stuck using kits again. So I look at it and I go, all right, it was a cool idea, but I'm still just playing a million kits. I think Scrapper kind of does it right, because on Scrapper, you might still use one or two kits sometimes or whatever, but you can play a bunch of gyros, right? Gyros are impactful enough and strong enough where you still want to use them. To me, it's like, all right, the only things I'm ever going to change on Mechanist are just the traits, right? Like you're not going to change the utility skills that much either. Obviously, you're going to change it if it's support versus DPS, but I mean, I don't know. I look at it and I feel like it's not going to be that diverse unless they significantly change something. They'd have to make the signets way more powerful to justify taking them.
I mean, I guess this makes sense if you think about it, but I think that this new round of Elite Specialization is kind of bringing up like almost like super ingrained old school design problems with the game, right? It turns out that having one skill that gives you 5 more skills with no real like cooldown on that, because kits don't have a cooldown, yeah, pretty good mechanic, right? Like imagine a utility skill, but it's a weapon swap with no cooldown. Okay, yeah, that's a strong mechanic. And NG suffered from this all the time, right? Because NG weapons are typically not amazing, right? Specifically in PvE too, right? They're not super, super good. And that means that the NGs are always balanced around kits. And because they're balanced around kits, weapons have to be bad. Because if they aren't bad, then kits just make it even more extreme because you add a bunch more weapon skills. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, right? Like breaking NGs and kits apart is kind of impossible at this point. It almost felt like, I don't want to say it, guys. Oh, Mel. Dude, do you guys remember the Mesmer reworks? Okay. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Maybe NG is next in line because ultimately, yeah, I mean, oh man, dude, I almost don't want to do this because I actually really like kits. That's the thing. I am a big kit enjoyer. I
love the kits too. That's
dude,
why I play NG. Tool belt plus kits, I think are sweet.
Are they actually broken? Are kits actually like fundamentally broken mechanically? I think they might be. That's the thing,
I don't
right?
know
like,
if they're just like required to play on NG. See, I thought that maybe there'd be a trade-off in some way on Mechanist. I thought that frankly I just thought Mace would be more impactful. I feel like Mace just isn't really that strong. The weapon isn't very good. Am I totally wrong with that? But it just the cooldowns for 2 and 3 are kind of long. And so you just auto attack a lot, which gives the barrier, which is good for support, I guess. But
gives a lot.
Otherwise, it just feels kind of weak. And I also thought that maybe, and there'd be some downside of this. I thought that maybe they'd give offhand mace too, so there'd be more skill diversity there. But they didn't, and so now you just have this mace that I don't even think people really used that much when they were benchmarking, right? I think they just used pistol for Condi. So
yeah, and that's only because of the fact that Pistol 2 is good. Because Mace auto attack is actually better than Pistol auto attack damage wise, but Grenade Kit auto attack is better than all of them when you're playing Condi, and Bomb Kit auto attack is better than everything else when you're playing Power. So what I am thinking now is that
auto attacks.
What if they had a cooldown to auto attacks for kits?
You'd have to swap kits a lot more to get value out of the auto attacks, then, right? That's not
because if they did that, you would have to auto attack on.
So what if they just didn't have an auto attack? Just give them another skill.
That as well, yeah.
Dude, do you know what that would do? NG? Dude, that just kills nade NG. Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Nade NG's dead.
Rip.
Oh man.
Yes, kill it. Oh. Kill that build in PvP now.
Because kits are really, really strong, but the thing is, like, even on Condi core NG core Condi Mechanist, you auto attack on this. It's thief, right? Like you auto attack on the best skill in the kit you have, which is the auto attack, instead of auto attacking on like an actual weapon skill, or maybe rotating between 2 kit auto attacks or whatever. Like they either need to nerf the auto attacks so that you auto attack on weapon skills, or rotate between more skills rather than pressing 1. Or they just had a cooldown to it. I think that's like the only solution I can think of right now. But
I can use a bit of a tweak for sure. Like, yeah, you could add a cooldown to kit swap, but honestly, that would just feel horrible. I think one of the really cool things about kits is that you can kind of like flex between them really quickly. I think it's actually a really cool dynamic. I like it a lot. So
yeah, that would kill a lot of the enjoyment out of my main class.
That wouldn't even fix the problem. That wouldn't actually fix the problem, because when you are auto attacking on grenade,
you'll just camp it more, right?
Yeah, you'll just camp it more. And then you would wait for bomb kit skills to come off cooldown, go in bomb kit, then you would wait for like flamethrower skills to come off cooldown, go into flamethrower. Like adding a cooldown wouldn't do anything. It would just make it feel worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I guess in total, I'm unimpressed with Mechanist. I think it's like a really cool idea, right? I love the golem. I love the Jade tech thing. Like those things are sweet. But I just can't see myself really playing it. Like to me, Scrapper and Hollow are smooth. Like they're fun to play. They feel good to play. And when I was playing Mechanist, I didn't feel good to play. And I know that's maybe not the most descriptive way to explain why I don't like a class, but it just didn't feel good. And maybe that's a matter of me having to play it a bit more. But I don't know. When I play Hollow and I've got my little lightsaber thing and I'm running around and it feels good and I'm balancing the heat, it just feels smooth. But Mechanist, I felt like I was like, come, Jade Golem, let's go. Come on. Like, follow me over here.
I think a lot of it comes down to what you said earlier, Sneb, to be honest, with the way the actual mechanics work, where the traits are all linked to the mech. This leads to a lot of problems. If your mech isn't there, you do literally nothing. And you're obviously very kind of locked into the trait choices depending on what your character is going to do as well. You can't really split yourself between you and the golem,
it's
particularly
not
because the stat in it. Yeah, and this is why I think, I think you and I both had the same inkling about like, oh, dude, what if they got a new, you had like a new F skill, like a tool belt skill for every single, like a golem ability for every utility skill. That would have allowed you to have a bit more flexibility, and it would mean that the traits actually do something. Because listen, guys, when the golem isn't there, I love this so much. This makes me laugh every time when people say, oh, dude, Mechanist, Pog, right? I'm like, listen, dude, if your golem is dead, you are core NG, but worse with only 2 trait lines, right? That's literally
NG,
you.
No tools.
Okay, yeah. and dude, that is such a brutal trade-off, man. I think there are a few things they could work on. For example, you could have your tool belt skills when you don't have the mech, for example. So you kind of have a bit of a... And the F5 is something the golem, right? Just like Hollow and Scrapper, right? So Scrapper, you get Function Gyro. Hollow, you have Hollow Forge on the F5, right? It could be summon the mech on F5 and you still have your tool belt skills. That would help a little bit, I think. But it's so brutal, like, the trade-off there. Like, if that mech is dead in PvP, oh my god, you're the saddest player in the game, dude, okay? Like,
Yo, I just had a crazy thought. What if they reworked tools a bit so that a lot of like the buffs to turrets and stuff affect the golem?
I mean, so that sounds great for AFK farming, I guess, but
yeah. Okay, so here's an example. Like you go into, what is it called? The toolkit, right? You go in and your auto attacks, they can heal turrets. What if they could heal your golem too? Right? Like just like little things like that.
I'm not sure about that one, buddy.
I don't know. It's just an example. Like, what if they just made? I'm looking for more diversity here. Okay, I can't see myself playing anything other than firearms and explosives and the same kits the whole time. And so I'm grasping at straws for anything that would make me want to play Mechanist.
Well, I mean, I think it's really cool. I straight up, okay, I think this is the time when we want to address the elephant in the room. This is the big elephant. You kind of talked about it a little bit. I think Mela and Sneb, you both talked about it a bit earlier, but I think we should really like hit it hard right now. And this applies to every elite specialization in EOD. They don't actually make sense in the current meta very much. Honestly, in any of them. But certainly especially not in PvE, okay? Because, yeah, sure, support megas actually has some really cool tools. You can do AoE, you can do 5-target might, you can do fury, swiftness, vigor, regen, a prop, bit of aegis, barrier, and healing. Awesome. That's super good. But there are 10 players in a raid, right? And why would you take 2 mechanists when you can just say, you know what? I'm going to take 1 Tempest, right? Boom. There it is.
Yeah.
We're in trouble now, right? And I actually think ArenaNet aren't stupid, right? ArenaNet are pretty surprisingly switched on. I think they're more switched on than people give them credit, actually. For when it comes to when it comes to the balance of the game, I think I'm expecting a balance apocalypse. The fact that there is no 10 target coming out with the new elite specializations. I think they're going to nuke it. I think they're going to kill every single piece of 5-target in the game. 10 target in the game. Yeah, I think they're going to nuke it. They're going to say Rev is 5-target. They're going to say Tempest goes back to 5-target again. Druid goes back to 5-target again. All that kind of stuff. I think that's the way it's going to go, for sure.
The only issue with that is that people will double stack a ton of crap, right? Like you'll just have 2 5. So I feel like some things it's kind of okay if they're 10 target, but there's lots of stuff that shouldn't be. I think alacrity should be treated like quickness and have any alacrity source be only to your party, only to your subgroup. But I think it would really hurt some classes to go to complete 5 target. They're already not used that much, right? So.
Okay, I think I have something that you guys might like then. So you could do everything 5 targets, which would bring the power creep down because it means that you might have to stack. You might need like 2 druids again instead of just 1 or stuff like that. But I think we talked about this in another TeaTime at some point. You might not actually stack the same classes for supports in like both subgroups. If something like Frost Spirit, the skill Frost Spirit, was changed to give a buff that another class can give as well. So you would maybe go for like a druid in one subgroup for like a 10% damage buff, and an ally on the other subgroup that gives the same 10% damage buff with like a different skill. And if they would do that, you might not stack necessarily the same classes again, like you did in like the mirror comp days. And even better, if they give us like custom keybinds for selecting different targets in the group, 5-man might actually be good. Not just to bring your power creep down, but it would actually make the gameplay a lot better. Because if you have an healer in subgroup 1 and it's 5-man, and someone in subgroup 2 is dying, he's dead. Because until the people in your subgroup get healed, unless he runs away from the group or everyone runs away from him and you can like heal him only, that guy's dead, right? But if they give you like a keybind so you can heal specifically the guy outside of the subgroup, that would make 5-man just make a lot more sense and be a lot better overall, I think. So I would actually really, really like that. I also do think that they will either have like a mega balance patch where they nuke everything. I think it's actually more likely to happen after the expansion comes out, maybe like a month or so. But I do think that they have to do that.
Do they not want to do it before the expansion? Because otherwise, isn't it going to feel kind of lame playing the new specs?
Yes, but do they have time to do that? Do they want
They have. I mean, dude, it's not a matter of time. They have to do it.
The expansion is now. Like, when is the balance patch, man? Like, come on.
It's really difficult because the problem, in my opinion, the problem with going down to 5 target is that it does prevent you from doing some cool stuff, right? I think there are 10 target stuff can be good, and it can end up being very restrictive if you have 5 target boons. For example, if it turns out that Warrior is still worth it, well, I've got some bad news for you. You're running 2 warriors in every raid group now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And if it does turn out that Druid is the best support for whatever reason, right? And well, it might be the best aggressive support, right? Simply because, spirits are pretty good, right? Well, then it turns out that, you're running 2 druids in every group now a lot of the time, even though you shouldn't, by the way. I mean, you shouldn't now. I mean, like, Temper's pretty good, guys, just saying. But I don't know, like, there are definitely a few things here that can cause problems either way. I can see the merits of both systems, but to be honest, I actually think you just eat the problems, but you need to pick one. ArenaNet need to pick one, because that's the problem right now. They're trying to do this kind of like, is it that? Is it that? Is it that? I don't know. There's 5 target, there's 10 target. It's a complete like mess of like unique buffs, boons being thrown everywhere. There is no cohesive vision for Guild Wars 2 PvE balance in any single way, guys, okay? There's no idea, right? They need to say, right, we're going to commit, everything's going to be 5 target, or everything is going to be 10 target. I think it's a really good point that you brought up there, Mela, about the idea that it's really annoying to heal people or like spot boon people in other subgroups. That needs to be addressed if you're going to do 5 target, because it's actually really annoying, by the way, to do that. It really limits what you can do with kind of like saving the day and like doing and particularly when it comes to healing, it's really annoying to try and prevent people from feeding, right? You're kind of like almost like playing 2 5-man groups rather than 1 raid squad. So that's why I kind of see 10 target being really good. But on the other hand, the problem, this to me is the big, guys, stop fucking, look, okay, there's like a lot of boomer going on. What the hell are you guys doing? God. Right? What the hell is going on? The chat, they're not even listening anymore, okay?
Yeah, dude.
Okay, but anyway, so the problem, here's the problem with 10 target. And actually, I think this is actually a really big problem, and it needs to be talked about, right? I want to quickly wrap up because I actually need to do some other stuff very shortly. We've got to wrap it up fairly so we can do Untamed real quickly. But here's the problem. If you have 10 target boons, that makes every support build in the game ludicrously overpowered, okay? So let's just compare what does a DPS spec in Guild Wars 2 do? A DPS spec does 40,000 DPS, and funny enough, that's actually really overtuned for every encounter in the game. Now let's consider what Druid does, okay? Druid gives a 5% damage modifier to everyone, gives Sun Spirit another buff, gives Spotter to its subgroup, which is a decent chunk of extra DPS there as well. You also give 25 Might to everyone. You give Fury to everyone if you take Storm Spirit. You also give Protection if you want to take Stone Spirit. You heal a shit ton, by the way, right? And you also have amazing utility and CC and stuff like this. Like, if you actually think about the and it's even worse than that, because 10 target means that you also free up another spot too. So it's not just, oh yeah, I'm giving all those boons. I'm also freeing up another completely new DPS spot as well in the other story. And holy shit, think about the actual damage contribution of Druid. It's probably like, what, 80k DPS overall, maybe, like in terms of how much damage it adds to the group. So next you go, wow, dude, okay, like power Firebrand's so OP, it does like 38k, 40k DPS. Just bear in mind that Druid adds like 70, 80k right now to the group. And that to me is actually also a really big problem with balance, because it means that supports are ridiculously overpowered in the current meta. And any kind of support mechanic will always dominate. Like if banners are 10 target, then banners have to be, I mean, how bad would banners have to be before you'd stop running them? They'd have to be like really bad, right? Because they're just so strong. They add so many stats to your group there. Yeah. Like, think about quickness. Quickness, what the fuck? Right? Holy shit. Like, okay, quickness, think about quickness Firebrand, guys. Quickness Firebrand does what? How much damage does it do? It does like 35k DPS, or maybe a little bit less than that.
Yeah. 33, something.
33k DPS. Okay. Bonus meme. You also give perma quickness to yourself and 4 other people, which basically buffs their damage by like a flat 30%, more or less. Right? That what? What? That's insane, right? So if you have like a regular class that does, let's say, 25k DPS without quickness, you're adding 8k to every player. So now you have your 33k baseline DPS of Firebrand, and then you're also adding like another 32k DPS to your group because of the quickness. So your actual total group contribution, even with 5 target, is 64,000 DPS, or 65,000 DPS, sorry, right? Like, what the fuck, right? I mean, like, so I don't know, the devs have got some serious trouble, like, with actually how they're gonna like sort all this boon application stuff. It's super hard, like, particularly with the advent of the aggressive supports, right? Stuff like Righteous Rebel is just, guys, stop looking at the fucking
iterations. I would do this in iterations. I think that they just can't go and drop a nuke. I think it could have pretty bad repercussions for the game. So what I would do is try and experiment with different things. So, for example, I think the one that they could probably get away with right now is just nerfing 10% alacrity. Just make it so it's only 5 and just see what happens, right? If it's really negative, they can always revert it back. But I don't think it would damage groups too much. I think if they made everything 5%, that we'd see like the meta 5 like fractal comp type thing, and then boom, that would just be, you just duplicate it twice. I don't see that. I think it would really hurt diversity in the game. So I'd rather see them, and what I think, and this is, I don't know exactly what would happen, but what I think is if they did nerf Revenant and Mirage so that its alacrity is only a 5-person application boon, then I think that we would see more diversity with alacrity in groups. Because right now, there's no reason to not play Rev or Mirage at all, right? So with the new specs, something providing alacrity, unless that alacrity goes 10% as well, there's no reason to play that. So I think we're giving a reason to play other classes if we make it so that Alacrity is only 5-person.
It's difficult.
But
yeah.
If you can't just nerf it all at once. You're gonna have big issues if you do that. I would say test out a few things, see what happens, and just keep making tweaks. The problem though is that requires that they put a lot of time into considering the balance. Maybe time that they don't have because I don't want to go too tangent here, but remember how they said that alliances are supposed to be by the end of the year? I was a non-believer. I'm even a bigger non-believer right now.
Oh my god. Dude, look what's happened to Sneb, man. I remember when Sneb was so happy. He was like, oh yeah, oh dude, I love Holosmith, Pog, I'm having so much fun. Now he's like a jaded, salty. Dude, it happens to everyone, man. Like everyone hates the game eventually. Snebby hates Guild Wars too.
When they announced it, I was like, well, they've announced this 3 times before and it didn't happen. What's to say it's going to happen this time? So this time I was like, I don't think it's happening by the end of the year. There's way too much that's going to go into this. And so now we'll see.
Okay,
we'll see.
I feel like people didn't like fully understand what I meant earlier with the, let's say like Frost Spirit gives like a damage buff. Like Frost Spirit gives a damage buff, yeah, for one subgroup, and then bringing like a Banner Warrior. The Banner gives the exact same buff, but it doesn't stack. So, like, wouldn't that fix the variety thing while also still keeping the same buffs? Like, you basically have like a better version of Mirror Comp from the old raid days. Because
I think that's one way to do it, yeah. Like, if you homogenize things, particularly boring ones, the thing about banners, right, they're not like a cool mechanic. They're not like something... They're not something weird like the Shiro F2 on Herald, right, that gives everyone lifesteal. It's like a... You get more stats thing. So I think, yeah, standardizing stuff like that, honestly, wouldn't be that much of a big deal. Because, yeah, then it would be like, ooh, you know, you could run a Tempest healer, and then you can have Warrior, which basically gives Frost Spirit, right? Okay, that's pretty cool. Because then you just don't necessarily have that same thing. Or you could have a very similar buff, right? You could have like a Paragon style thing, like Anthem of Flame, where you like it kind of replicates Sun Spirit in some way there, like as well. I do think that you can do it without necessarily completely homogenizing everything. You can just add. I think the key is adding like more unique buffs rather than like just like only certain classes have them. Because the issue is asymmetry. Like the problem is that you don't have even the option to do this stuff on most specs, right? Like, and there are loads of unique things that only a specific profession can provide, which does lead to a lot of really big problems with the balancing. But you know, I feel like I'm getting trolled here, okay? Because are the buffs, the thing is though, the buffs are valued very, very highly, but they're not even actually that good, right? They're not necessary, right? Like, for example, if you actually had a choice, if you only cared about win rate, like, do you want to have like, win rate, stuff like, you know, in a raid, like what's going to give you a higher win rate? Either Tempest or Druid. Tempest will give you a higher win rate, even though it doesn't have offensive buffs. If you had a choice, realistically, if you have a choice between taking a Warrior and another Scourge, what actually increases your win rate more? Almost certainly the Scourge, actually, not the Warrior. Particularly seeing as, like, you know, honestly, most Warrior players don't play very well, right? And Scourge is very easy to get value out of. So in a way, I feel like our discussion point here is actually irrelevant because it applies to only the sweaty gamers. Everyone else shouldn't even care about this because caring about it will make them wipe more.
So okay. First of all, I want to ask you a question. Whenever you say that spirits are not even as good as people think they are, do you feel a little bit scared of saying that out loud?
Sorry, say again?
Like, whenever you say that spirits are basically garbage for most groups, do you feel a little bit of fear saying that out loud?
No.
Okay.
I do like spirits though.
Spirits are good, right? But when you guys do a little bit of math, you can actually see that in most groups, spirits are not even good. Like, like the Sun Spirits, the Frost Spirits. Yeah, Frost Spirit gives my 20 press it. Wow, amazing. You're playing Druid, by the way. Sun Spirits, Vigor or whatever, right? Most people don't dodge, right? No one cares. Like the Prot Spirit, like Stone Spirit is the only one that's actually relevant, right? If you go in a raid group, sometimes relogging to Druid to carry the group is actually worse than just playing DPS Scourge. And this happens quite a lot. Because you giving the spirits, this is gonna sound so toxic. I'm so sorry. But like you giving the spirits to people that just press 1 is not better than you playing Condi Scourge and giving people like a barrier, resting them, giving, I don't know, like vampiric presence and just doing damage. And I've shown many logs on stream of this being the case, and people just don't believe it, right? Like if you are applying 10% outgoing damage to people that do like 1k DPS, that's no better than playing a DPS class yourself that also provides team support, right? So yeah, most people should be playing like a heal necro, like a tempest. They should be playing these classes because yes, like these buffs are not that relevant. But I do think that they can make them like, yeah, like people are not gonna play them. Like that's the thing. So just give the other support classes kind of like something similar, I guess, so that people don't feel bad. Like people feel bad for playing heal Tempest.
Yeah, but
not because
this is the problem though, right? Because if you do that, then Tempest is just like strictly better than Druid, right? I mean,
yeah, it is. But like this is the thing, that the people that don't know this wouldn't play Tempest because they would think that it's worse, right? So they're like, oh, it doesn't give the spirits, it's strictly worse, right? But that's not the case at all. But if they give them a buff that is like similar to Druid, they would actually, they would just play it because like, what's the, they don't have a reason to think that it's worse, right? I don't know. You know, like, if you know that that's the case, you already know that that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no. To be clear, guys, like, you know, I know it's all funny. Haha, you know, look how bad everyone is. No, that's not what we're doing here. We're trying to communicate and express the fact that the balance issues with the game are not just the balance issues with the game. It's actually the perceptions of the balance of the game as well. And we're very concerned with these comps, right? If you adjust a build, or if you adjust the way you play to 5-man or 10-man, then this essentially incentivizes you to play a certain way, right? Particularly if there's a perception that Druid's really good. Back in the old days of raiding, you would basically see double Druid in every single group with double Chrono. Now, there were a few reasons for this. Reason number one was because there weren't really any other alternatives to these builds at the time, which made it a lot worse. There was literally nothing else in the game that gave quickness and alacrity. I mean, that was good, right? Then we had to wait until literally fucking Path of Fire for that, by the way, for another source of quickness. So, you know, those Chrono mains having a great time there. But also, it's because they have the most offensive DPS. Was running double warrior in every group necessarily even optimal back then? Honestly, maybe not. I mean, like in terms of win rate anyway, right? Like, yeah, there were other things you could maybe have increased like your win rate further by playing different strategies, right? It really depends what you're optimizing for. Optimizing for DPS is something that Guild Wars 2 players have always done, but it's not very often the correct decision to make a lot of the time. And I think, you know, it's difficult. Like, how do ArenaNet communicate that to players? Because we'll say something like, oh yeah, Heal Tempest isn't good, like buff Heal Tempest. Well, the problem is if you buff Heal Tempest, then I've got some bad news for you. It's like better than Druid in every way now, because it already heals way better. It already gives boons way better, right? And it can also, it has its own like unique healing modifier. Like it has a unique modifier, a healing modifier with Soothing Mist, which by the way is very good. And it can extend boons already. It actually has loads of cool unique utility that Druid doesn't have already. If we say, you know what, dude? Whenever you apply an aura to someone, they get a 10% damage modifier. All of a sudden, Tempest is just, wait a minute, it heals more, does more damage, extends boons, right? Applies boons better, right? And you're on Ellie, so you get to flex about being a really highly skilled player playing the hardest class in the game. I mean, who would ever play this dog shit druid class ever again? This is the problem that ArenaNet face, because Tempest and Druid are actually quite balanced right now. In fact, it's very skewed towards Tempest, if anything, actually. Like, Tempest is better in a lot of ways. In fact, look, and don't take my word for it, like Subi, QT leader, only member of QT still playing the fucking game, actually said this on stream as well. Like, most groups would have a higher percentage chance of killing a boss with a Tempest than with a Druid. And in my opinion, when you're measuring how good is a build, the only true kind of objective metric you can make is win rate about raids. How high or how much influence on killing the boss does this profession have? And I can promise you, Tempest is a higher impact on almost every boss. The exception to this would probably be Desmina, where Tempest doesn't really have anything to push with. But that's good, right? You don't want one build dominating anyway. I think it's good that Druid is actually strictly better in some areas compared to Tempest. That's correct. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
You know, like, you want to have, this boss, you want to play Tempest. Oh, that boss, Mechanist is great, right? Heal Mechanist is really good for whatever reason, right? And that's where 5-target builds can be really good, by the way, because think about this. Think about Largos, like double Mechanist on Largos. Pog, right? Because you can split up Alacrity, easy. Okay, you can split your Alacrity, take a firebrand with you, boom, you got the full suite of boons. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
That's a good and bad thing, though. The problem is that if you make it so that people have to have tons of characters geared, it just makes it harder to get into that content. So I agree with you. I think it's awesome that you can go and play one class and the next boss, that class might not be as strong as some other class, and that way there's each fight is different and you have to swap around a lot. But what I've discovered is that if I require that people switch classes all the time, they just don't have it. And so then people get they kind of get pushed out of raids because they're like, okay, well, now I got to go gear this other thing. This already happens, by the way. This is why on NA, very few people do wings 5 and 6. It's because they need different classes. And, or they don't need per se, but pug groups require different classes. And so if they don't have Mesmer or Renegade or Healbrand tank or whatever, then they just don't get to play wing 5 and 6. Like, you don't have if you don't know how to lamp with Reaper, or there's just so many little examples. People, maybe somebody only has a Condi class, they are not going to be good at CA. So it creates some issues, right? What's the balance between making it so that each encounter is sort of unique in what is good and what is not good, and making things still, I guess, doable for people that don't have a million different things geared.
Yeah,
I mean, you can just.
I mean, I think the whole point is that you can fit into any group comp, no? So even if you only have one build geared, wouldn't it work everywhere? Isn't that kind of the goal here?
Yeah, you can just play both. You don't need to play one over the other.
Yeah. You know, it's not like, you can literally only play X build here, right? It's just that, X build is really nice to have here, but not like a game breaker, right? It's not like a game.
Oh yeah, I mean, I killed Deimos with 10 core NGs, but the problem is that if you're trying to just group up, there's already that issue in raids, and so if you say,
wouldn't adding more options help with that? Like adding loads more things that do stuff help?
Yes, but maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought you said that, having something be Druid being way better on some boss. And,
not way better. Like 10% better, or like 20% better, like a little bit better. So it's like, it's really not. I like the idea that Scourge is really good on X boss and Weaver is really good on X boss. They work, right? You can clear every single boss in the game with 6 Weavers and 6 Scourges, which is true, by the way. Actually, it's not even hard to do that. But I like the idea that some bosses favor certain playstyles over others, right? Which is the case now, right? But more so with supports too. I wish that was the case with supports. For example, I wish that banners were better on certain bosses, but worse on others. That spirits were better on certain bosses, worse on others, right? I think that's a really good way to balance it, as opposed to just like, kind of just making everything do the same thing.
Yeah,
So, like,
I guess all I'm saying is that there's some people that only have like one or two things geared, and if the meta dictates that those things are not playable, well, but if the meta dictates and the community dictates that some things are just not playable on certain bosses, when in reality they are, because you're not suggesting they be completely unplayable, then you're going to have even more gatekeepy stuff going on, I think. But
I mean, this would fix the problem. That wouldn't make it worse.
You think?
The problem, well, yeah, this, like, if one class is good, and that is like the only class that is good on something, and everything else is completely garbage, you can only play that. Yeah, that's fine. People might actually get mad about the fact that you're playing that over something else. But if that class is really good and the other ones are good as well, they might be just, maybe instead of a 10% damage buff, you bring a 5% damage buff. Maybe instead of pushing the golem away on a sage at 5,000 units, you push it like 4,000 units. Like, that's still playable. But by adding something else that is playable as well, it means that if that guy doesn't have Ranger, he has like Tempest. So he can play both, and both do like the exact same thing. But what TeaTime is saying is that he thinks that it's good that some classes are better somewhere than others, so that you actually have a reason to play those classes besides the balance. So, for example, on SH, it's good that, let's say that even if Tempest was like a lot better than Druid, but pushing is a lot easier on Druid, you would go Druid anyway, right? That's a good thing. It means that instead of playing the same 5-5 comp in a raid, you will play 5-4, and like at least one of them changes, like two of them change, so that it's not just like strictly that comp. You play depending on the encounters, right?
You do not want to ever, you don't ever want to have like a shared numbers contest, because the problem with a shared numbers contest is that something is always going to be better than something else, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You want to have it come down to, what does this spec actually do? Right? What can it do in terms of utility? Balancing the game around utility is, in my opinion, much better than balancing it around numbers, because even if you do a really good job of balancing the numbers, one of them is going to be better than the other. Like, you see this a lot with, well, definitely, I think the build that actually falls victim to this the most is actually Heal Scrapper. Heal Scrapper is actually pretty good. It's a lot better than people think it is, actually, but it really falls behind because it just doesn't have any good numbers, right? Its numbers are really lacking, like compared to every other build in the game, pretty much. But it's not bad.
An example of what I'm talking about right now. I love playing Heal Scrapper tank at SH.
Hell yeah.
It's not meta, right? But it actually does the job, right? Like, I have a little bit of block with my shield 5. I provide some prot. I have lots of Condi cleanse in case something goes wrong. So that's a positive thing. But the meta right now on NA, people will say 2 HB tanks, nothing else.
Ooh, right? That's not even good.
The reason they do that is because Aegis like completely carries the team with 2 heal brands. So they run 2 heal brands and then a pusher druid, and then just a bunch of Condi DPS. Usually people ask for mirages. What I'm saying is that when I go into those groups and say I'm going to heal Scrapper tank, they question the crap out of me, and the only reason that they allow me to do that sometimes is because they know who I am. But otherwise, they'll try to push me out, even though both are completely viable, and they do, like, heal Scrapper's better at cleansing the Condis, in my opinion. But they'll try to push me out because they think that the advantage that Healbrand has is just safer or better, right? All I'm getting at is that I think that that it's good when classes have like these pros and cons, but if there is something that happens to be even just marginally better at a boss, if we're okay, so an example is if Healbrand is good at SH, everyone is going to want them to play Healbrand. And then if on the next fight it's, now it's Scrapper, then you're going to be required to be switching between classes all the time to get the meta comp. And so some people are going to gatekeep that and say, okay, you have to have HB and Scrapper because you need to play Scrapper here and HB here. And if you don't do that, then you're not welcome in the group. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Isn't it always already like that though, to an extent? I mean, not as in the gatekeeping, but like there already are way better picks on certain bosses. But people don't really do this.
I feel like this doesn't really happen. Like this used to happen a lot more. Like if it happens now, it's honestly just because the people in the group don't really know the classes. Like this used to be really, really bad back in the Tempest days. Like in HEOT, if you didn't play a Tempest, if you were playing Reaper or DH, which were really good back then as well, dude, I'm not kidding, by the way. People think that raid LFGs are toxic now. If you joined a raid group on Reaper or Dragon Hunter or anything that was not the Ellie icon, even though you were in a different instance, so you just saw the little icon from Elementalist Core Ellie, you would get kicked out of the group instantly. No questions asked, right? If you're on Reaper because it's just storage character and you are relogging to Ellie because you want to play Ellie, you are kicked anyway. People don't actually do this that much because, you know, Tempest does not do 70k DPS by itself anymore.
Yes.
The game is a little bit. Yes. The game is a little bit more unbalanced. So that
do you want to go back to those days? An Ellie main Mela? You want to go back?
They were a lot of fun, but the community was so much more toxic, close-minded, and variety of classes and raids was literally non-existent. So no, as much as I liked those days, it was way worse for the game. But it's like I think this like like people don't let you play Healing Scrapper. People don't let people play like Reaper or whatever. But that's exactly because of the fact that what if they gave you extra Aegis that Firebrand gives as well? What if they gave a Tempest an extra damage buff that Druid has as well? That is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like
you'd have to like mirror basically you'd have to make it so that everything is equal. They just do it slightly differently. Is that what you're getting?
Yeah, like slightly.
You know what I've learned? I was going to say this. You know what I've learned? We should do a dedicated podcast to this because otherwise we're going to be here all day. And hey, guys, spoiler alert. Okay, do you know what we're talking about next week? Let's fucking go. I'm bringing in Sneb again. We're going to get Mel in it. I'm going to get Nike. I'm going to call up Brazil halfway. He's going to start trolling, right, and yelling all over the place. It's going to be great, guys. Okay, that's next week. Stay tuned. But anyway, Untamed, guys. We're wrapping this up now with the Ranger. Actually, I'm opening with another hot take. I mean, I'm on fire today, guys, in literal sense. He actually did. He actually did as well. Like now he's actually joined the call. Brazil now activated. But anyway,
he's gone.
But anyway, Ranger, actually hot take. I think Untamed is actually really good. Just needs a bit of refinement. I really like that you have way more control of your pet abilities. I also love the fact that because you have way more control, I think it will actually make a lot more pets in PvP viable than the current normal ones that you see. So, for example, like we saw Dra actually playing with the Black Widow Spider. Do you know why? Well, because it has 2 3-second immobilizers that you can use now whenever you want. Fun. Okay, and there are loads of other instances like this. For example, the Wolf, you now have control over both of its crowd control abilities, which is really strong because you can combo them. I actually love that. I'm like, no joke, dude. I think Untamed is actually a really strong design. However, I do think it actually runs into a few issues with you lose control. For example, you don't have a hotkey anymore for making your pet return to you. Big fuck up there, actually. In general, that's not good at all. They should probably do something about that to alter that to make it a bit more usable. And maybe the overall mechanic is a little bit lackluster if you don't use the hammer. But outside of that, I actually think Untamed is really cool. And before everyone says it's really, really bad, yeah, it's really, really bad in PvE. But listen, guys, if you guys think it's bad in PvP, you should watch Boyce. He was doing some insane shit, like teleporting the Drake onto people and then like tail whipping them. And then also mauling at the same time for, I believe, a 17k burst, right? With a 1-second ability. And yeah, I know that's Boyce. I know he's like, you know, he farms everyone on every build ever, okay? But saying that Untamed is bad is actually false, by the way. That is flat untrue. Untamed is actually quite strong right now if it's played well by a skilled player. So in terms of bounce, it's actually quite good. Ranger gets some very much needed, like, good 2v2, 3v3 punch with the skills like the boon removal, projectile destruction, and even the pet teleport is great. Teleport the pet on there, and then bam, there's the tail swipe, dude, okay? There it is. Hell yeah. So in terms of actual design, I actually really give it a high rating. To be honest, I think that it's actually really good. I'd like to see a little bit more on the unleash mechanic. Maybe it could give you, like, I don't know, maybe like some new skills on your other weapons there as well, or like change something else, because getting 3 new abilities in your pet doesn't feel super good. And, you know, if you don't use the hammer, all it does is give you like a damage modifier, which is like, not the most exciting thing ever. But I actually think Untamed, you know, Untamed it almost reminds me of Catalyst. It's like, what if Core NG was a little bit better? Like, but Untamed is better than that. Untamed is like, wait a minute, what if Core Ranger had way more quality of life, and actually we addressed kind of some problems that Ranger has, particularly in PvP? Boom. There's Untamed. So actually, I am going to buck the trend, because I know everyone really hates Untamed, but I actually think that, one, it's actually good in PvP, and would certainly see play at minimum in high-level ranked gameplay for ranked. Okay, maybe even competitive, right? If Ranger became meta at some point, right? If the meta changed away from like ultra team fighting, it was a bit more roamy, then I could see it going into play in the main meta. It does suck massive dog dick in PvE, right? But that's easy. Just give it more numbers. Easy. Isn't like 32k DPS?
Yeah, it's like 32k DPS.
That's not good. Okay, Specter does 51k Mela.
Good. Right? Okay, that's not even talk about like Specter and like a Bladesworn. Right? Like let's ignore those classes. But yeah, I actually do agree about the design thing. It's like we said this before. I feel like the pet skills, like having more control over the pet skills, should be like a core ranger thing. And the fact that they are really good, like you can use pets that you would never use before, exactly because you have control over them. Like this whole thing is PvP oriented. Like it's the PvP spec, right? Hammer do CC. You have Condi Cleanse. The CMC nearly, he basically said that they are fixing some PvP issues that Ranger has with the spec. So it is like PvP oriented. I mean, 32k DPS in PvE is not even that bad. Of course, if you compare it to Specter and Bladesworn, yeah, it's nothing. And also, it only does damage. It doesn't really bring anything. Like you do less DPS on a Condi Firebrand while giving quickness. So yeah, it's not even comparable to anything else. But I do think if they add some numbers and make it like maybe a Condi spec, you would have like maybe Condi this and like Power Soul Beast. Like they could coexist in PvE. But I honestly don't think they should do that. Like Power Soul Beast has every single weapon that is playable for PvE. I think it's really, really balanced. Druid is Druid. I've been talking about it for like the past 30 minutes. So I honestly don't even want Untamed to be good for like PvE content. I think that Ranger is actually doing really well in PvE content right now, so they shouldn't do anything about it. But yeah, like I have this feeling about Untamed. Like, yeah, the skills for pets, it does feel like it should be core.
Yeah.
And also, why only the hammer as new skills? Like, either give it to like no weapons, or maybe only change like the first 2 skills from every weapon. Like, it's just so weird that like they had to make hammer skills bad because they have like an enhanced version. So you just like take something else, and then because you take something else, you actually don't use an entire like part of the spec, which is like the hammer weapon, right? I'm not really a fan of this. Yeah, it's the same thing for Catalyst. Like Catalyst hammer, why only the hammer? Like if you don't use hammer, like you are missing out completely like on a spec thing. Just give it to every single weapon, which would be really good for Catalyst, I think. By the way, I would really love that. Or just give it to nothing and do something else completely, right? Because again, I don't know what this translates to into like a balance or stuff like that. I'm not even thinking about that. I just feel like it's so weird, right?
It's a big problem. I think that a few of these specs did this, right? They were like, oh, you're playing the elite spec, so obviously you're going to use the weapon, right? So they built in some of the elite spec into the weapon. This is a big mistake, right? They kind of did it with Hollow, but they didn't, right? Because Hollow Forge is like a huge mechanic on its own. Like Sword has heat involved too. That's like a very minor influence. Like with Catalyst, you have like an Omega ability on Hammer, right? That's this really cool mechanic that you only get if you use Hammer. And it has, you know, and also if you play Untamed, you only get value out of your Unleash, or rather, well, your Unleash does way more if you have the Hammer. This is kind of a mistake, I think. I don't, and they did it with Vindicator too, right? Vindicator, your F2 flips your skills, but wait, if you don't use Legendary Alliance, then it doesn't really do anything special, right? So you're ending up with basically core rev, but you've got one dodge and greatsword. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, it's only interesting if you do what ArenaNet want you to do. It feels like the Apple of elite specializations, right? You know, like Apple, they don't like you to use their software or hardware in a way that they don't want you to do it, which is kind of against the design philosophy of Guild Wars too, right? Because the whole point is that, you know, you're supposed to be creative and have loads of build freedom. But in a way, you don't get the coolness factor unless you play the exact way ArenaNet want you to, which I do think is a mistake. And this is a criticism that Sneb was talking about earlier of Mechanist, and I think it definitely holds true, potentially of other elite specializations in this regard too. You're very limited in your versatility because you almost like have to commit really hard to what ArenaNet wants you to do with the spec, which I think is like, I see what they want, right? They want to make sure they don't have another Path of Fire situation, but I don't know, it's a little bit, a little bit. And I think Untamed could definitely use a little bit more in terms of extra abilities or something else happens that you can do outside of just getting like new pet abilities. That needs to be like a little bit extra there. Like, the Ranger needs maybe extra skills or something happens when you're unleashed. Because right now, I think it's halfway there, right? When you unleash your pet gets new skills. Awesome, right? What happens when you unleash? You don't get any new skills. Like, where are your new skills? Where's your trade-off? Where do you get the replacement skills? Nothing happens, right? I think that's the problem there. That there needs to be some kind of interesting mechanic that Untamed gets that you can do as the Ranger when you're unleashed. You know, maybe there's like a combo effect, like when you land 3 attacks, something happens, something like that. Or I don't know, like I was going to say something could happen on dodge roll, but let's not do that again, please. Okay, I want off that wild ride. But you know what I mean? Like something needs to happen to interact with your profession, your build, while you aren't unleashed. You could even have that in maybe like traits. But as of right now, when you aren't unleashing your pet, Untamed is literally core Ranger with a bit more cool usability and maybe a bit more pet diversity, and you also have like a damage modifier as well. That's not an elite spec.
Yo, I know that you gotta do like speedrun or something. So I am going to be very succinct in my opinion.
Oh wow.
About Untamed. Are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
I think that, you know, the mechanic is kind of cool. It needs a little bit of tweaking. But ultimately, what bothers me most is that it's called Untamed. Yeah, I think the name sucks. I wanted it to be Warden or something. I thought Warden would be way cooler, but Untamed, it's just... I don't get it. I don't get it. Why'd they call it Untamed? But anyway, overall, I think there's a lot of... I think the criticisms of having the mechanics often tied to the weapons is a little bit weird because when you do that, then suddenly you like are forced to play that weapon. Maybe that's what they want. They want you to be forced to play certain weapons or something. But I'd like to see some tweaks there, allow for more diversity, and boom, there it is. Should have been called Warden.
That's true. It would have been a good roleplay name. I guess I didn't want to clash it with some of the lore, I guess, right? You know, the because there was like the wardens from factions, right? So they didn't want to get a little bit of a clash there as well.
The problem is you can bully people in PvP now and be like, "Oh, you just got tamed, Untamed." You know?
Yeah, they should have just called it Tamed because you have more control over your pets. It's the opposite.
That's the big criticism we have. The name, it's not descriptive. Not descriptive.
Just delete the spec. The name is horrible.
Is it really? I don't even mind it.
I'm just memeing. I don't even care about the name. Like, I don't.
Legit should have been called Warden. I don't know.
I'm just trolling.
Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's the 10 out of 10 feedback right there, I guess. Well, I mean,
boom, there it is.
There it is. And I think that's a pretty good place to wrap things up. We've been going for a lot longer than I wanted to, actually. We got distracted by the classic debate, guys, okay? You know, it's a tale as old as time there, but it's time to wrap up. I've got other things to do, okay? We're going to get out of here, guys, okay? What are we still doing here, okay?
Gotta go get sub 2 hours, right?
Yeah, of course. It's time for speedrunning time, okay? We have our team waiting for us for ages. But anyway, let's wrap things up real quick before we move on there, guys. What a great discussion. What an intense discussion. Hey, we've already got the next podcast topic sorted out. Hell yeah, okay? I love to see it, dude, okay? I love to see it indeed. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on the show as well, guys, of course. Time to talk about a few things here. Mela. What do you do?
Hello.
What do you do? Why are you so toxic in the raid community? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's because I mean it's the end of the show. I think I can say I have small TeaTime.
Oh.
Yeah. If you guys have been watching this long, you deserve to know the truth. That is why. What do I do? Well, I stream every day on Twitch, and I also have a YouTube channel where I upload guides. Not only on my YouTube channel, which is Mela on Twitch, and also do guides live on stream, which is just /Mela. I also just uploaded a guide on the Hardstuck YouTube channel for Condition Scourge. So you guys can actually go over there and go watch how to play Condition Scourge raids. It's a 3-minute video. It teaches you everything. So go watch that as well. But yeah, stream every day on Twitch. Come watch raids, YouTube, Twitter, and all the other stuff. And yeah, that is me.
There you go. Sneb. Same question.
Right.
Also another toxic raider. Hates the community and hates new players. True.
Look, I stream probably like 4 or 5 days a week right now. Going for Twitch partner. Applied for the second time. Haven't heard back. They've ghosted me. Who knows? Your friendly non-ArenaNet partner, maybe soon to be. Who knows? Maybe they'll email me. I check it every day, every hour. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, please help. I stream a lot. I do a lot of raids, pretty much only raids. I help new players get into raids. So if you're on NA and you want to get into raids, hit me up. Let's do this thing. Also, because NA has a crazy static culture, if you're trying to find a static, I play Matchmaker now. I have like a form you can fill out and I'll help put you in a static. And I mix the experience levels a little bit. So I'll put like between 1 and 3 newer people. So maybe they've got their builds. They're just not as experienced in the raids. And I'll put them with like 4 or 5 experienced players. So that way they get elevated really quickly and we have more and more experienced raiders that can just jump in. So right now I'm working on my 7th static. So if you want to be part of the team, find me on the Twitters. I'll send you the form at Snebzor. Let's go.
There it is. Of course.
Yeah.
Wait, will this work actually? I think it should work. Hang on. I made this command. I think it should do it. Whoa!
Wow.
Look at that.
Boom.
Actually incredible. Insane. Actually working. I love to see it, guys. And of course, there are links below the stream there as well and below the video if you're watching this on YouTube. All right. That's it for TeaTime, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, follow. Subscribe. I stream all the time as well. I make videos all the time, just like these guys over here, okay? I've also got a green screen right now. My camera also breaks sometimes. Various things happen. Very exciting indeed. So stay tuned. There'll be more TeaTimes to come. Let us know what you think, of course, in the comments and in Twitch out there as well. More exciting episodes to come. Perhaps a little bit more focus on some of these really big questions, because I think with the elite specializations all being revealed, I think there's definitely that big question about the PvE meta that really needs to be discussed. But that is for another time. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Really hope you enjoyed it. Okay, be sure to follow all the social media here and watch all these guys. I make some great content there. I fully endorse, I fully condone everything they say, okay? Maybe not everything, but most of the things they say. And of course, we'll see you all next time, okay? Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you later. Cheers.
See ya.